Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm Alameda County Supervisor Nate Miley, and I want to welcome you to day 2 of our second annual statewide illegal dumping conference. Once again, it's virtual this year. Hopefully in 2023, we'll be able to have in-person conference, maybe even in-person and virtual or hybrid at the same time, but more on that later. But welcome this morning. Before I get into additional comments, let me turn it over to the interpreter so she can provide information in Spanish.
Hello, everybody. My name is Gracia from International Contact, your language host for today. We have Spanish interpreters for this meeting, and the Spanish participants will be listening to the interpretation on their corresponding channels. The interpretation channels have already been created, so please give me one moment while I give the instructions in their Spanish. Gracias por asistir a esta reunión. Para escuchar la presentación en español, por favor, haga clic en la figura del mundito en la barra de tareas que aparece abajo en su pantalla. Haga clic en interpretación y seleccione IES, español o Spanish. De manera opcional, puede escuchar solo el idioma interpretado. Si está usando un teléfono inteligente, haga clic en la esquina de su pantalla donde hay 3 puntitos y seleccione Interpretación Español. Después habrá una parte de la reunión donde podrán hacer comentarios y simplemente escriban sus comentarios en el chat o en la sección de Q&A. We ask all panelists to speak slowly so interpreters can keep up with you. This concludes the multi-language instructions. Thank you very much. Now I pass it along to Supervisor Miley. Thank you.
Thank you for those instructions for those who want to tune in Spanish. We're very happy that we could have a language interpretation for the conference. So once again, welcome everyone. Welcome to our second day. Today's focus will be on eradication. Yesterday we focused on education, and the third day will be focused on enforcement. But clearly all 3 of these overlap. Yesterday, to my amazement, we had over 650 attendees, unique attendees at the conference joining us. And I was just blown away. We had attendees from not just all over the state and throughout the country, but we even had attendees from internationally. Canada, Morocco, Guam, the United Kingdom, Israel. I mean, wow. And this is a statewide conference. We might need to take the conference national or international based on the interest, but that's amazing. And we had viewers from Oregon and Kentucky and Washington and Texas, et cetera. So obviously the concerns with illegal dumping is something that we're all confronted with no matter where we are. And as I've said before, illegal dumping knows no boundaries. And clearly it knows no boundaries in terms of trying to get a handle on this problem, which clearly can be addressed. We had over 50 people or over 50 questions that were presented to in the chat that were responded to as well. So let's get into today's conference. But before I go further too, let me just kind of do a recap of yesterday. We had, Rebecca Bauer-Cahan started us off with a very good overview and a keynote speech. We had review of the 3 E's. We had the impact of legal dumping from the Beautification Council, Ken Houston, actual out on the street showing us stuff live. We had information from the Illegal Dumping Technical Advisory Committee. We heard from LA about their Our Spot program. We heard from Future Cycle around, Furniture Cycle about furniture waste. And we also heard about the whole issue of propane cylinders and how to deal with them. And then there was an exciting panel that the Mattress Recycling Council conducted. And then finally, we heard closing remarks from the sheriff. So before I go any further, let me also acknowledge all of our sponsors. We are once again very pleased to have Waste Management, WM, as our title sponsor. They are our title sponsor, and we're just very, very thankful to have WM as our title sponsor. And you'll be hearing from WM today. They'll actually be kicking things off once I conclude. And Waste Management is a solid waste collection service that operates in 48 states, as well as the District of Columbia, Canada, and Puerto Rico. Our education level sponsors, the Mattress Recycling Council, which is a nonprofit organization that operates recycling programs for mattresses in states that enforce mattress recycling in California, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. You may know them also by their name, Bye Bye Mattress. Another education sponsor is the East Bay Municipal Utility District, East Bay MUD, whose mission is to manage natural resources, to provide reliable, high-quality water and wastewater services for the East Bay, and to preserve and protect the environment for future generations. Our education level sponsor is the Oro Loma Sanitary District, whose mission is to provide the highest value in wastewater, solid waste, and recycling services to customers and protect the San Francisco Bay. And then our enforcement level sponsor, Georgia Lane Townhomes and Pepper Tree Village Apartments, Tom Silva. And we're very pleased to have Tom and his companies being our enforcement level sponsor. Then we have a number of community level sponsors. We have Jefferson County Department of Public Works, that's in Louisville, Kentucky. Then we have the Illegal Dumping Technical Advisory Committee, Idtac, convened through the California Cal Recycle. And then we have Forrester as well as a community sponsor. Additional community sponsors, the California Product Stewardship Council, which has worked with us over the years. Furniture Cycle, the National Stewardship Action Council, another organization that's worked with us over the years as well. And then we have Paint Care, the Castro Valley Sanitary District, and the Product Stewardship Institute, all of which we are very pleased and familiar with. Okay, let's see here. Housekeeping. Okay, so you've heard the language preferences, but let me just go over that one more time. Click interpretation, choose your language. Select mute original audio. You cannot listen to language interpretation if you dial in, only available on Zoom. How to ask questions. Use the QA feature at the bottom of your Zoom window. Chat is available to discuss presentations with fellow participants. However, questions in chat may not be answered, so use the QA feature for all questions. What if you miss a presentation? Recordings of the conference will be made public. Links will be sent to all conference participants. You can join the conference and conversation on social media. It's on a number of platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Use the hashtag IDCon22, IDCON22, to keep the conversations connected on the conference. If you still have questions, comments, and/or concerns, email Aaron Armstrong at acgov.org. That's aaron.armstrong@acgov.org, or you can contact my office directly, 510-272-6694. And let me just thank Aaron Armstrong, Jasmine Howard, for helping to make this conference happen, for my staff, also a number of my other staff, my chief staff, Tona Henninger, executive assistant Austin Bruckner, and Ashley Strasberg, one of my other staff, for also working on the conference. I want to thank all the staff from the Information Technology Department for helping us pull off this virtual conference as well, and others who've played a role in making the conference happen, the second annual virtual conference. So as I said, I've already reviewed day one. Day one was an exciting, very rich day of information, very rich. And we're looking forward to today's day on eradication. And then, as I said, the enforcement day is tomorrow, and you want to tune in for the enforcement day. And if there are others who haven't registered for the conference, they can still sign up for the conference, because the Attorney General of California will be speaking tomorrow. We have a very exciting enforcement panel. And then also we have opening remarks from the Vice Chair of the National Associations of Counties. But now for today, day two, WM will be kicking us off. That's waste management. We have a legislative session, product stewardship. There's a whole block on product stewardship that will be talked about. I'm very interested in hearing more about the cost of illegal dumping, because there is a cost associated, not just, I mean, there's a financial cost, and we'll hear about that. There's an emotional cost, a physical cost, quality of life cost. So it's going to be very interesting to hear some of the panel discussion around the cost of illegal dumping. Then there's a whole section on eradication, and then we'll have our closing remarks. That's for today. And let me just say that, you know, if we don't remove illegal dumping, it just begets more illegal dumping. It's like the broken window theory. If you don't fix it, all you're going to do is end up with more trash, more garbage, more degradation to the quality of life in a particular community or area. And illegal dumping affects us regardless of whether we're in a suburban community, a rural community, or an urban community. We all are challenged and faced with illegal dumping. We all have a role to play in illegal dumping, and it's something that requires the involvement of all of us, regardless of whether we're from the public sector, the private sector, the faith sector, whether we're just concerned citizens. We all have a role to play in trying to deal with illegal dumping, which is a problem that can be dealt with and addressed. So what I'd like to do is, I'm getting ready to go into the title speaker in a second. That's Talia Wise. She's the Director of Communication with Waste Management, formerly known as WM. So let me give you a little introduction to Talia. She brings over 25 years of marketing, communication, team building to her role as Director of Communications for WM of Northern California, Nevada. New to the industry, Talia joined Waste Management, WM, in August of 2021. Most of her time is spent managing the internal communications team for the area, which focuses on public education, outreach programs, contracting through the public sector specialist relationships. With that being said, I'd like to turn it over to Talia. Thank you, Talia.
Thank you, Supervisor Miley. Can you hear me?
We can hear you and we can see your presentation.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for that very kind introduction. I am very, very excited to be here, and WM is very privileged and proud to be the sponsor for today at the whole conference with the title sponsor. It's a privilege. Wasn't yesterday great? Yesterday was really great, and we're really excited for today and ready to kick off the day of eradication. Please note, you can see here on this slide, I've included my email as well as the Twitter account you can most often find me of. You can communicate with me directly, or let's continue this conversation. So what I'm going to talk about today are there's three things. One is the front line, what WM or your contracted hauler can do. Two, root cause contributors to illegal dumping and suggested solutions. Three, partnerships. The front line, that's us. So, who's responsible for eradicating illegal dumping? The haulers, the contracted haulers are the people everyone sees and associates with trash collection. But ask the question to yourself, if you're not from this industry, which I was not up until 9 months ago. I worked in educational publishing for 25 years. I was brought to this industry because my little boy, like these little boys, was fascinated by garbage trucks, and we made a relationship with our garbage man. I thought, this might be an interesting business to work in. So before you have more information about how this industry worked, who did you think was responsible for taking care of trash and illegally dumped materials? So we have a poll. Can we see that poll? Yes, here we are. Who in your town, city, jurisdiction is the specified contact to pick up illegally dumped materials? Is it your city contracted hauler, for instance, ACI, WM, etc.? A different city contracted organization, a city agency, a private organization that's not city contracted, or I don't know. Let's answer that question. Okay, the minute right now. Thank you very much. And as I mentioned, I don't come from this industry. I come from a different industry, but I've learned a lot since I've been in this industry, obviously. And what I've learned is that, not every city works the same way. So can we see if everyone's had a chance to answer the poll? Can we see the responses? Great, I'm going to just pull it over to my other screen. Okay, so 29% of you have indicated that your city contracted hauler is responsible for picking up illegal dumping. 5% a different city contracted organization, 50% a city agency. This happens to be the case in my city, which is Oakland. 2% a private organization, not city contracted, and 14% I don't know. So every jurisdiction is a different organization or agency who deals with picking up illegally dumped materials, and there's some that even don't. The haulers are not always contracted to do this, and this is something that not everyone realizes, as we can see here, 14%. Okay, so here's the situation. There are many things we can do through contracts and partnerships as a hauler to help cities and communities with their illegal dumping issues. This is a still taken from a video taken by one of my colleagues of a well-known illegal dumping spot here in Oakland that happens to unfortunately also be adjacent to an unhoused community. It's on Wood Street. And there are many things we can do to help prevent situations like this and ensure that these types of materials that you see here are brought here. This is Altamont, which is one of our landfills out in Alameda County. And please note regarding the cost, later today, Dave Stratton, who is our Area Director of Finance, will take part in the panel of the cost of illegal dumping. And tomorrow, Brad Sia, who is our Area Director of Public Sector Relationships, will take part in the panel on franchise agreements so that we can go more into the fundamentals of how to work together to eradicate illegal dumping. But what I want to talk about now are what we at WM consider to be the root cause contributors of illegal dumping, and offer some solutions too. So here they are. This is a list, and I know it's a little bit of an eye chart, but I'll read it out. First of all, the cost of service levels, the customers get what they can afford and not what they need. There's insufficient bulky programs for single family and multifamily dwellings. Underserviced waste collections for residents and commercial businesses, resulting in illegal dumping and contamination. And what I mean by contamination, it means that instead of putting materials that should go to the landfill in just the landfill cart, they're putting those materials in the recycling cart or in the green waste cart, thus by contaminating those carts and probably contaminating the whole haul if it's very egregious. The whole haul meaning everything that goes into the garbage truck. Lack of city enforcement, a mandatory service per code or an MMO, unlawful use of city cans and other containers, meaning like if they don't put it there, if they don't have an agreement with the city or an account, they're going to put them next to a garbage can in the city or on some unmanned property. Property owners not held accountable to abate blight, protection of property, uncontrolled blight on abandoned property, and no accountability by property owners. And I'll point out that yesterday in the Q&A, someone posed the question that they were a property owner and they were having an issue with illegal dumping on their property, but they didn't know who to contact within their city to help them alleviate the situation. Lack of self-help city contracted hauler to abate illegal dumping and illegal hauling, uncontrolled illegal hauling activity, which is what we saw in that picture at Wood Street. That was actually an illegal hauler coming. If you see the whole video, you see them dumping out the entire load, very shamelessly. They did not care. So next, I'm going to highlight on two solutions that we've either socialized or actually enacted within the city of Oakland. The first issue is right-sized carts, making sure that customers get what they need and not just what they can afford. And what we have proposed, and we've been socializing internally, and we've talked with some of the leadership within the city of Oakland, is to provide rate equitability for single-family dwellings through change in cart capacity and rate structure in our MMO contract. What this means is, currently single-family customers just don't have enough room in their carts. Right now, residential cart service is offered at 20, 35, 64, and 96 gallon carts. 93% of Oakland single-family customers have 35 gallons or less than the size of their cart of MSW, which is municipal solid waste. In many other cities throughout the state, throughout the area, throughout the country, the majority of single-family homes subscribe to 64 and 96 gallon carts. Many other cities don't even offer 20 or 35 gallon carts. Now think about your area too, because I'm going to bring up something that we don't always relate to, the rise in illegal dumping. Per the census of 2020, the population of Oakland grew by 50,000 people. That's about a 10% increase in population. During that same time, our housing units only grew by 10,000 units. And most of those units were apartments, studios, 1 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms in multifamily units through our tech corridor building, which is Brooklyn Basin to Uptown. In addition, rental costs and home buying costs within the city of Oakland, and now everyone is feeling this throughout California, have ballooned. And many single family residents are just not single family, they're multi-generational family and they're extended family residents. So you've gone from your typical nuclear family to extensive family and more people living in smaller dwellings, thus by needing more room for their waste. So here's our solution, rate compression. Just simply set up a rate system so that 64 and 96 gallon carts are the same price as each other, but significantly less than their current rates. And encourage single families to subscribe to these sizes so they really get what they need, thus by eliminating contamination and illegal dumping as an option instead of just using the cart that they need. With adequate service levels and larger containers, we can improve the overall diversion and assist with overflow that can lead to illegal dumping. And what we're suggesting is that we move about 85% of single family dwellings to a 64 or 96 gallon cart. And that we really think this will help result in a significant increase in gallons of MSW going where it needs to go annually. In addition, if families are not using their green waste carts for garbage, but they're actually using for green waste, this will help the families and thus the cities upheld the milestones that they need to meet for SB 1383 regulations. The next solution that we've been able to already enact is the Oakland bulky service. Now, keep in mind, this service was always available to all residents, but it wasn't really accessible. So what we did, we developed with the city of Oakland and WEMAC, which is the waste management of Alameda County, to increase participation, convenience, and material limits to provide more permanent program to assist cleaning up Oakland. And what we did is we met directly, or we're reaching out directly to all Oakland residents. Currently, and like previously, if you are a resident in Oakland, you don't need to be the account manager, you don't need to be the bill payer on the account. You can arrange to have a bulky pickup or arrange to make an appointment for self drop off yourself. You don't need to be the homeowner, you don't need to be the building manager. You can do this yourself directly. You can do it either by calling, and you can find that phone number at oaklandrecycles.com, or there's an online form to fill out as well, and they will set something up for you. And I just did it myself this week, although I am now a homeowner. When I was a renter for 15 years, I would have loved to have access to this program because I didn't know from my landlords I actually could have had bulky pickup. But what this has allowed is the bulky program inclusivity. The bulky program is targeted to all residents. It's a multifamily solution. Now, tenants can make appointments directly, as I mentioned. It also, what we have done is we've increased the material volume limits for both single and multifamilies. For the single family, it's gone from 3 to 4 yards, which is a 33% increase. And for multifamilies, it's gone from 1.5 yards to 4 yards drop off or pickup, which is a 160% increase, which is quite considerably huge increase. And thus, we're really trying to reduce illegal dumping in Oakland with this offer. So just imagine if you are a tenant in a building and you're moving and all the materials you have to purge, you now have an option to have it picked up rather than, in some cases, if you felt like so overwhelmed by the situation, just leaving it on the sidewalk. Erin, how much more time do I have?
You have about 5 more minutes.
Cool. Okay. Because now we're going to talk about something I really love, in addition to bulky and composting, is partnerships. Okay. Later on today, Byron Lynn and Gia Whiteside of Caltrans are going to cover the Clean California grants, as well as this particular one. So I'll just highlight it. WM was really privileged and lucky to be able to participate in the Alameda County District Attorney's Office Clean Streets Initiative. It was a grant. We've won more than 2/3 of it. It's a transformative initiative to remove litter, create jobs, and beautify California. It's one of the most difficult and complex challenges addressing illegal dumping is the dumping near unhoused communities. And as I showed everyone online before, the picture of Wood Street, that is completely adjacent to an unhoused community. We're really thrilled to have been able to participate in the writing and securing of this grant with the District Attorney's Office of Alameda County, Argent Materials, the Beautification Council of East Oakland. They presented yesterday. Caltrans, who's presenting later today. I believe Argent Materials is also on the call for the cost of illegal dumping later today. And we're really thrilled to be working with the Downtown Streets team, which will actually be the team that will be facilitating a lot of the work involved in picking up the illegal dumping. So it's one way that your hauler can contribute with other agencies within your community to help, help eradicate illegal dumping. Another partnership that we have secured a couple of years ago was that with the Alameda County Food Bank. And oftentimes when you think about illegal dumping, you don't think about food waste. You think about non-organic materials and things that don't necessarily disintegrate. But of course, food waste is a huge issue. It's one of the cornerstone issues being addressed by SB 1383. And it is an issue, again, also with illegal dumping, with where does all the extra food go if it doesn't go into the right facility or into the right receptacle. So a couple of years ago, Waste Management secured a $100,000 grant from Cal Recycle. With this grant, we were able to purchase a refrigerated hybrid truck, which we presented to the Alameda County Food Bank. We presented it in February of 2020, and I'm sure everyone knows where they were in February and March of 2020, and how the beginning of COVID really definitely affected the ease of which by people can get food. It made it much harder. There's definitely there's an issue there, but with this grant, it's the first hybrid vehicle in the food bank's fleet. And they have since January 2021, they've been able to use the donated funds to provide 6 similar trucks to partner organizations throughout the county, by creating a program to pick up food that would otherwise go to waste, land up in places that it might be considered illegal dumping, and get it to people who actually need it. And this is a preventative measure and an investment and a partnership that not only supports SB 1383, helps eliminate illegal dumping and eradicates it, but it's also part of what we are now considering the full circle economy. So this application, these types of partnerships and fundings, and these types of grants are just some examples of how your community hauler, your contracted hauler can do when we all come together to work on programs with each other and eradicate illegal dumping. And before I turn it back over to the great team of Alameda County, I want to thank Nate Miley and especially his team, Aaron and Jasmine and Ashley. You guys have been just incredible, very organized. The District 4 Illegal Dumping Conference Task, the Illegal Dumping Task Force, Caltrans, Alameda County District Attorney's Office, Argent Materials, Downtown Streets Team, the Beautification Council of East Oakland, Alameda County Food Bank. Again, here is our contact information here at WM. I'm TWise3 at WM. The Twitter account you should follow us on is WM_Greater Bay. And last but not least, we have created a website to address illegal dumping. It's Clean Streets CA. So we continue this conversation after the conference this week, throughout the year, until we don't need this website anymore. So thank you very much. I'm going to hand it back.
Thank you, Talia, for the great presentation. We really value WM as a partner. The work of WM, both to serve the community, collaborating with so many of us, and your remarks are just very inspiring. So we want to continue our collaboration with WM and continue the good work, because once again, it's teamwork. TEAM, together everyone achieves more, and we definitely appreciate the fact that WM's part of this effort. So thank you. So what I'd like to now do is turn it over to Aaron Armstrong, who will kind of moderate the rest of the conference, and I'll be back later today.
Thank you, Supervisor, and thank you, Talia, for those wonderful remarks to get us through the day. I'll be our announcer and timekeeper for the rest of the day, and we do really have an exciting day full of presentations. We're going to start off today with our legislative block, which will be for the next half hour. And so for our legislative speakers, get ready because you're coming up next. Following that, we will have a product stewardship and extended responsibility block running for another half hour, and then a panel exploring the costs of illegal dumping from a variety of perspectives. After that, we will have a break, very small break, 5 minutes, but be sure to pay attention today during those different blocks, because we'll be doing some polls during the break to see how well everyone's been paying attention. After the break, we have another hour. That's our eradication block today, and it is just jam-packed, so I don't want to delay too much longer. I do want to remind everyone, though, that we are on social media right now, so if you are using the hashtag IDCon22, then we'll be there and we'll be interacting with you as well. I'd like to welcome now our first speaker for our legislative session for the Illegal Dumping Conference, Heidi Sanborn, to the illegal dumping stage. Heidi's been a leader in the solid waste industry for 31 years, based in California. She started working in 1990 as a consultant to local governments, writing waste management plans, then worked at CalRecycle as a policy advisor to the chair. She is the founding director of the National Stewardship Action Council, promoting producer pay policies for a variety of products in multiple states, has been a key stakeholder in introducing a national truth in labeling bill for flushable wipes and other products, as well as bottles of pills. Heidi, I see that you're here. I'm going to ask you to unmute and start your video. Welcome to the Statewide Illegal Dumping Conference. Over to you. You have 15 minutes.
Great, thank you. And I am going to, let's see, how do we share my screen here? Where is the share screen?
Should be down at the bottom. It's a up arrow.
Let's see, up arrow. There it is. Very good. Now, where is my PowerPoint? There it is. Great. Okay, so let me see. I'll go to the top, go to start from the beginning, and there we go. Good morning, everybody. I'm Heidi Sanborn, founding director again of the National Stewardship Action Council. We advocate for a circular and equitable economy. I was also the founding director of the California Product Stewardship Council, and I've been in this field doing this work for a very long time, over 3 decades, as she said. So our vision is that we attain a circular economy here in the United States, and there's a lot of ways to get there. But we're going to focus today on policies that help us deal with the problem of illegal dumping. Again, we're a 501c4, so we can lobby anywhere in the country, and our mission is to collaborate with stakeholders all across the country in different states and nationally to achieve a circular economy here in the US. We have a broad board, they're all over the country. If you're interested in joining, let me know. Won't get into too many details. We have an advisory committee as well. But it's important that we have voices at the table from all around the country because we're all so unique in the different states. We also have a 501c3 and do that work on education to promote a circular economy. So I'm going to talk about the policies to reduce illegal dumping, and Aaron talked about a few of them. It's going to start, there's really 6 of them that I've identified. Encouraging better product design, meaning source reduction and elimination of some of the materials that we do find dumped. And an example of a policy that affects that is extended producer responsibility. Another policy is truth in labeling. People are buying products based on labels that are lying to them. They're telling them it's recyclable, it's biodegradable, and they don't worry so much about where these things are going, or it's not hazardous. That's a problem. And we have several bills that address those things, like what's flushable wipes, which we know are not flushable, and they're plastic, and then disposable vaping products, which of course should not go into the trash, they're hazardous. Establishing convenient take-back programs, and a really good example of that is our bottle bills. We've got 10 states with bottle bills, we've got 40 that don't, and we need to pass a national bottle bill. I'll talk about that. Sales bans for the most littered products. I'll talk about some examples of those. Increasing fines and deterrence for illegal dumping. And then we have got to get people housed. And I think Aaron touched on this, and I'm not going to get into it, but that's a major problem, is mental health and housing. So in California last year, Assemblymember Quirk, who is from Alameda County, actually passed a bill in California that said it to our contractor state licensing board that they could take disciplinary action against a licensed contractor for the improper disposal of contractor related materials. Now, you've all seen what we call C&D debris dumped here, there, and everywhere. A lot of that, unfortunately, are not licensed contractors. That's a different problem. But for licensed contractors, they can literally lose their license now if they get caught doing that in California. So we were glad to see that. But extended producer responsibility, I'm going to quickly talk about it because I know Suna's going to talk about it as well. But it is the policy used in the world to get better designed products that have a end of life program where people do not have to pay at end of life for something they no longer see value in. Because every time we charge people for proper disposal of things like mattresses or carpet or whatever, when they have no value left to them in that product, they will dump it. Somebody's going to dump it to avoid those costs. If we put the costs in the front of the product price, that's how we avoid illegal dumping. So the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, it is an international organization preeminent. They have defined extended producer responsibility as a policy approach under which producers are given a significant responsibility, financial and or physical, I believe it should be both, for the treatment or disposal of post-consumer products. And the reason is this prevents waste at the source and promotes better design and recycling. So this will help avoid illegal dumping. And in California, I've helped lead the way from when I ran CPSC as the founding director to now NSEC of passing the bills in California that have a producer responsibility model, everything from mercury thermostats to pharmaceuticals and sharps. And I want to thank Supervisor Miley. I hope he's still here to hear this, but he has been a local leader that has led a national movement, because it is Alameda County who took EPR for pharmaceuticals first and went and was challenged by pharma all the way to the US Supreme Court and won, because it was not a violation of the Interstate Commerce Clause for local governments to protect public health by making the producers of medications take them back. So now every county in the country has the legal right. It's paved in law to implement EPR at the local level if they need to. But of course, we like to do things at the state level. After Alameda passed theirs, we passed 12 more ordinances. Long and short stories, we got a 39-0 vote off the Senate floor to pass the first EPR program in the nation for pharmaceuticals. The reason that's important is it also, and sharps, needles. So those are illegally disposed, and nobody wants to see needles all over the place. That is finally getting implemented this year in California, and we're very excited about that. We also had EPR, basically a stewardship program with a visible fee, passed in California in 2013. Unfortunately, we learn a lot as we go, and we've still seen illegal dumping of mattresses, although it's better. As long as there's a fee, as I said, at the end of life, they're going to dump it. And that's why these programs have to really make sure they mandate end of life is free to recycle, because if it's not, you're still going to have dumping. It's not going to solve the problem, even if there is a drop-off location. The hardest thing we'll ever do in waste management is packaging producer responsibility. It's very, very important we do this for dumping, and you can see all the packaging litter everywhere. But it is going to be hard because you've got 6,000 or so manufacturers and a lot of material types. But I will talk about that more in a minute. Tool number 2, truth in labeling. Tell the truth, truth matters. I'm on the Recycling Commission of California. I chair it, and we have made recommendations about truth in labeling and how important it is. We've defined in California last year, I won't have time to get into all the bills, truth in labeling on what is recyclable. They can't use the chasing arrow after 2025 if it does not meet our definition, which is 60% recyclable. And the same is in compostable. We have also, so I've been vice chair of this commission for almost 2 years. Vice chair is actually another Alameda County supervisor, Richard Valle, who also operates TRISA disposal. And we have been very effective as a commission at passing policies in California last year that are recommendations of ours. We don't advocate as a group, but we do it individually. But it has national impact. We're 40 million people, and we are 12% of the market. So, companies do follow us. And we got a lot of press on the truth in labeling bills. It's a producer responsibility to tell the truth. And I've been saying this in interviews and Reuters. It is the wild, wild west of recycling labeling in California, and there's no sheriff in town. That applies to the whole of the US. We've got to get companies to stop lying on the labels. And we shouldn't be allowing lying to the public. Now, this goes to the national bills that we've gotten that were passed based out of California's law, AB 818, which we sponsored last year in California by now Congressman Lowenthal and Congresswoman McClain from Michigan, have a bipartisan bill to truthfully label wipes. The reason this matters, it's a flushable issue, of course, and waterways, but it's also just getting to truth in labeling for companies like Procter & Gamble and Kimberly-Clark that have all the packaging as well. I hope you all can support it and get your locals to support these very important bills to reduce mislabeling. We've also got a labeling bill in California based off a recommendation of the commission, which is they're relying on the labels of packaging, of shipping packages. This is recyclable. This is biodegradable. They're not. And it's creating, people put things in the wrong place or think they're biodegradable. Tool number 2, we need to improve our bottle bill. Bottles and cans are one of the first things that went to one-way disposables that used to be refillable. So in California, the commission recommended that we actually go back to the bottle bill and go back to refillables. We were requiring glass be crushed to get that money back. That's crazy. So now we're going to go back to refillables. We got that bill passed. And we've got to improve convenience. It's got to be convenient for people to return their bottles and cans, or they're not going to. And then we're going to add wine and spirits, another highly littered item, especially those little nips. That's a very big problem now in their plastic. So again, this tool and expanding the bottle bill, at least in California, we got this bill passed to go back to refillables. I realized in addition that we needed to educate our legislators more. So when I was with CPSC, I actually started a trip to Canada, a study trip with the California Foundation on the Environment and the Economy. This was our first trip at a recycling center for packaging to get them to see and understand what does convenient collection look like so people don't illegally dump things. And these are examples and pictures of different places we've been all over Canada. I'll quickly go. 343, these are bills that passed last year. I won't have time to get into all the truth in labeling bills, but for 2022, this is a big deal. We have lots of bills this year in California, again, that as so goes California, goes the nation usually. So we've got EPR bills, we've got bans on the sale of things like disposable vaping products that have little batteries in them and they're plastic and they're hazardous with either nicotine or cannabis. And the bottle bill expansion, and even a ban on the sale of propane gas cylinders because they're littered item, and again, unhoused, use them for cooking and leave them about. So there's lots of bills here. I will, be able to post the PowerPoint so everybody can look at them, but you can also follow us on social media or follow us at nsaction.us. Also, big picture, SB 54 by Senator Allen here in California. This will be the overall source reduction and EPR for packaging. If we can negotiate an agreement, we'll find out soon. We're also working on a national bottle bill for the 40 states that don't have one. Hopefully you can all help us with that. And it looks like it could be introduced as soon as a few weeks. another major litter problem across the nation. We've even got a PAC to help with that. And this is my contact information. So please follow us on social media, join us. But this is a teamwork makes the dream work. As Erin said, we really need to all partner. It is not just a California problem, it is a national and a world problem, and becoming a public health problem because of all of the litter that's ending up in our food, et cetera. So thank you so much, Erin, really appreciate it. And thanks to your team for having me.
I'm going to unmute myself. How about that? Thank you, Heidi. And thank you for that excellent presentation, especially around all of the work that you've been able to help move forward at a national level. Like me and the supervisor both say, illegal dumping knows no bounds. This isn't just an Oakland issue or a Los Angeles issue. This is a statewide, this is a worldwide issue. And I think that's why we see people joining this conference from all around the globe. Which is so exciting. So thank you for all of that information. Just a reminder to everybody, this conference is being recorded and will be made available after the conference in a post-conference website where you will be able to rewatch individual presentations and download all of the PowerPoint presentations that have been shown throughout the conference. So that should be made available in the weeks following the conference. And if you registered for the conference, which I'm sure most of you did, then you will receive that link. But that will be a publicly available website so that you can get all of this excellent content. The other piece I want to just remind everybody is that we have the Q&A feature down below. So if you have a question, a burning question during a presentation, if you want to know more about truth in labeling or extended producer responsibility or any of the really excellent topics that we just learned about, you can put those questions into that Q&A feature. And Heidi's going to be sticking around for the next 15 minutes answering all of those questions in the Q&A feature. So you can get your question answered right away from an expert in the field. So it's an excellent tool available to all of you. I'd now like to welcome our next speaker in our legislative block today, Doug Cobalt, who will be speaking about ways that we can collaborate statewide to address illegal dumping. Doug has been talking trash for over 29 years. He is currently the executive director of the California Product Stewardship Council, or CPSC. He holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering with a minor in planning from the California State University in Chico. And he was the chair of the CPSC, the founding president of the National Stewardship Action Council, the chair of the California Mattress Advisory Committee, and a member of the California Carpet Recycling Advisory Committee. So Doug has found some time in all of the things that he's doing to be here with us today, and we really appreciate that. So Doug, over to you. You have 15 minutes.
Erin, thank you so much for having me here to help further along the conference. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so hopefully you can see that.
We're seeing the presenter view.
Yeah,
You may want to switch it.
Oh, you're okay. You should be. Yeah. Did I give you the right one? The full screen view.
You'll want to switch it.
Oh, okay. Let me. Yeah. My apologies. Let me skip that. There with me.
It's under display settings up.
Yeah, too many. Actually, it's too many monitors. The problem. Okay, let me get out of the. For some reason, I can't get out of my. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Should be under display settings.
Yeah, no, there we go. Sorry, I just
Don't
grabbed
worry.
the wrong one. Now I know which one I meant to grab. Oh, okay, now you should be seeing my full screen.
Beautiful.
Okay, sorry about that. So again, I'm proud to be here to help along with this conference. And another part of my duties that Erin didn't mention was I am the vice chair of the Legal Dumping Technical Advisory Committee that CalRecycle works or hosts for us. And you heard from Larry Sweetser, our chair, yesterday. And then I'm also the current chair of the Solid Waste Association of North America California Chapter's Legislative Task Force. We affectionately call it the LTF. Okay, move on. Okay, so just a little bit about CPSE real quick before I move into my content is that we're a small, scrappy staff of 5. We have 14 board member positions. The majority of them are made up of local governments. So we got a lot of expertise in the area, but we do have private sector board members as well that help guide this organization to do all the wonderful things that we do. I also like to acknowledge where we get our funding. The majority of our funding does come from our cities and counties and districts and JPAs. So thank you very much to all of you that continue to support CPSC financially so that we can continue to do what we do. And of course, we also have our private sector sponsors. And so we love to thank them. You'll notice that while we have the main sponsor for the conference here, they're also a sponsor of CPSE. Thank you, WM, for your contributions and all the other private sector sponsors that we have. I know Heidi just went over a lot of the bills, and so I was going to just skirt over this very quickly, but just to put it in perspective, in 2021, the first year of the 2-year session, 2,400 bills, more than 2,400 bills were introduced into the California legislature. And then in the second year, another over 2,000 were introduced. So it's a busy place over there at the Capitol. And quite a few of these bills do impact us at the solid waste industry. Not quite as many directly on illegal dumping. I think we probably should have more just to solve this problem. But fortunately, we did get a few that got through last year in 2021. And they're listed there on my slide. A couple of the bills I wanted to just touch on that were, in my view, very directly related with illegal dumping is AB 1690. That is the single-use electronic cigarettes and cannabis vaporizers. That is Heidi's bill, NSAC's bill that they're carrying and sponsoring. That one is moving through, just got a judiciary yesterday. And then the other one you heard from Assemblymember Bauer-Kahan yesterday, her bill, AB 2374. This one is absolutely directly related to illegal dumping. This is increasing fines for commercial dumpers. And these are for businesses that have 10 or more employees. As the number of violations go up, so does the amount that they're going to pay. What is always also great about what the assembly members put into this bill was the actual ability to, one, ask the courts to not only fine these organizations, but to also add on other things like force that organization to go clean up the mess they made or pay for that cleanup. And then additionally, what was also just added into the bill was the ability for, or the requirement of the court to report to the business licensing entities of these commercial enterprises and let them know that these convictions have happened. So it's going above and beyond than just increasing the fines. It's actually taking some more steps to try and basically get these businesses who are illegally dumping to stop their bad behavior. So we applaud the assembly member for the bill she's carrying through in the legislature right now. And that one has also gotten out of the first committee of public safety, and it's now sitting on consent for the Business and Professions Committee, which means basically when it's on consent, it should go through with no problem, and then we'll move on to the next step. As was mentioned earlier, you're going to hear from Byron and Gia later today from Clean California. This was a great initiative put out by the governor to spend over $1 billion to help curb the illegal dumping problem, but also establish beautification where there's chronically illegal dumping locations. If we make these places more beautiful, that might help to stop that illegal dumping. So you'll get to hear a lot more about this from Byron and Gia. And so please pay attention to that because there is money there for local governments to engage in this process and clean up some of these messes. Of course, Supervisor Miley has been instrumental in getting us going where we are today with his ACID, or the Alameda County Illegal Dumping Task Force, or ACID Task Force. He's been instrumental here in getting that going and bringing this to light. The Idtac has been around since 2006, but Supervisor Miley has jumped in as well to try and further this effort and get us where we need to go. He launched the pilot back in 2019. They have a final report I would encourage everyone to download that report and take a look at it. It's very insightful. They have a great number of videos that you can look at on their website to talk about illegal dumping and what to do about it. So I would also encourage you to look at those videos if you have an opportunity. And then, of course, we have Idtac, which I mentioned earlier, and Larry talked about yesterday. Again, it was formed in 2006. There's a great amount of work that's been put into this. This is a resource for anybody that is dealing with illegal dumping in their jurisdictions or in their state. Please jump in there and take a look. It's a great toolbox. We've also added a GIS mapping function now into there. Thank you, CalRecycle staff, for all the awesome work you do, and for CalRecycle being willing to sponsor the work of the Idtac, because it's been absolutely necessary. And one more thing on that GIS page is that when you go to a city or a county, you can click on that area and it will give you information on who to contact there locally to talk about illegal dumping or to report illegal dumping. So it's just another tool in the toolbox to help us fight this chronic problem we have. So we have the Alameda County Task Force, and we have Idtac. The task force has their 3 E's, which we're talking about a lot at the conference here this week. And then Idtac has its PACE, or the Prevention, Abatement, and Cleanup and Enforcement. There's a lot of overlap here, which is wonderful because there's a lot of great sharing of ideas, affirmation of ideas, knowing. So that means that we know these things can work. We just have to put them in perspective and work together, so we're not all just working separately in our own silos. Working together is great. It helps us. So what can we do? What can we do in 2022 and beyond? There's been talk about merging the Alameda County Task Force and the Idtac. That might be a really wonderful thing to do. I think Supervisor Miley, I can't speak for him, but I believe he's very supportive of that, so that we speak with one big voice. We've got a lot of activities going up and down the state. I think that's great that those continue, because everything is local. And so what works in Sacramento may not work in LA, may not work in the Bay Area. And so we need to make sure, or work in the rural areas. And so we need to make sure that we have our local things going on, but at the same time, working together as one big cohesive group, so we're not reinventing the wheel all the time. If we're going to do this, if we're going to have a merger of these two groups, because Supervisor Miley has been doing this out of the goodness of his heart to run the task force and provide the staffing resources that have been required to do that. CalRecycle has also been supporting the Idtac. There is no dedicated funding there. So maybe what we need to do is we need to make sure there's some dedicated funding for CalRecycle to fully support the Idtac and make sure that this whole group, this statewide group, has all the resources they need, the staffing from CalRecycle that they need, without having to worry about can they afford to provide that staffing. We need to provide funding to local governments. We're seeing that through the Clean California initiative. That was the big bump here, but that's a short window of time that's going to be available. What are we going to do after the Clean California initiative monies run out? We need something that's long-term to help the cities and counties fight this problem. So, and then we absolutely need to continue this statewide conference. I applaud Supervisor Miley for getting this going. I know we were supposed to get going in 2019, then COVID hit, and the inaugural conference got delayed by a year. We had the inaugural one last year virtually. We're having the second one here virtually again. I agree with Supervisor Miley. I think it'll be wonderful. We can all get back together and work together on this. We're a big state. We're very diverse. We're 12% of the US population. We need a lot of tools in the toolbox. So I was going to leave this open for questions, Aaron, if we have any. And then here's my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime via email or phone. I'm happy to take your call and answer your questions. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thank you, Doug. So of course, if anyone has questions, and I've seen a couple come in through that Q&A feature for Doug or for Heidi or for anything related to legislative efforts through California and beyond, post those in our Q&A section down below, and we will have our experts right here joining you in that Q&A section and answering your questions live. So definitely check it out. I want to thank you both, Heidi and Doug, for being here and helping us get through this important session, because cities and counties can't tackle this alone. We really do need to focus on the big picture and how we can pass some legislation at the state level and hopefully at the national level that can help move the conversation forward in a meaningful way. So thank you both. And I'm now going to be moving us out of our legislative block and into our product stewardship and extended producer responsibility block. Just a reminder, though, to all of our presenters, this is myself included, we have interpretation going on today. So if we can make sure that we're speaking at a reasonable rate, that will help our interpreters be able to translate in an effective manner. So just a brief reminder on that. So I'd now like to welcome Suna Bayrakal from the Product Stewardship. Sorry, let me actually get your full bio here, who's going to be speaking to us about advancing product stewardship. Suna is an experienced policy analyst and a researcher with an environmental engineering background. She is the director of policy and programs at the Product Stewardship Institute, where she leads technical research and develops and analyzes product stewardship policy in several product areas, including batteries, carpet materials, mattresses, household hazardous waste, fluorescent lamps, tires, and mercury thermostats, all items that we don't want to see ending up in the streets and in our waterways, like we learned can happen yesterday. Suna, welcome to the statewide conference, and over to you. You have 15 minutes.
Thank you very much, Erin, and thanks Supervisor Miley for the opportunity to speak at your meeting and really participate in this very interesting conference. I greatly appreciate the chance to do so. Let me share my screen. Can you all see that?
We can. You may want to make it wider so that it fills the whole screen for us, but we can see it.
Okay. How's that?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Good. And can you hear me okay?
You're all good.
Okay, thank you. So I'm here today to speak about problematic products from an illegal dumping perspective, and product stewardship and extended producer responsibility as a potential solution, not only for eradication, as I know today is Eradication Day, but also how it helps with education as well. So before I dive in, just a little bit about my organization. We are a national nonprofit organization. We have focused on product stewardship and extended producer responsibility in the US for the last 20 plus years. We have government members, government board, we have 47 state government agencies and hundreds of local governments as our members, individual donors, and also partners as well. Our mission really is to reduce the health and environmental impacts of products across their life cycle, although I will say we're really mostly focused on end of life, and we work on over 20 product categories. Just a quick slide on product stewardship versus EPR. For those of you who are less familiar with these terms, product stewardship can encompass manufacturer responsibility or other government regulatory programs. And then in terms of manufacturer responsibility, it can be voluntary programs, or they can be legislated programs, which is an example of extended producer responsibility. And in terms of extended producer responsibility, it's a law that extends a producer's financial and management responsibility for its products really beyond the manufacturing stage, both upstream to product design and downstream to post-consumer reuse, recycling, or safe disposal. And just kind of reiterating a little bit of what Heidi already mentioned. So hopefully I'm kind of adding to her beginning discussion of that. Key elements of an effective EPR laws, as I mentioned, producers share responsibility and burden of end-of-life management. Typically, we have EPR programs are run by industry, but have state agency oversight and enforcement in effective laws. The program is usually run by industry through a stewardship organization that develops a plan that is subject to state agency approval. Sustainable funding is provided rather than relying on grants and tip fees. The program funding is as Heidi mentioned, also either a charge upfront on each product sold or a cost internalization on the product. In an effective law, again, that funding will pay for state oversight of the program. There's performance targets to make sure that there is a basis to evaluate the program's effectiveness, collection convenience standards to ensure that consumers have access to free and convenient collection across the state in urban and rural areas, outreach and education to raise awareness of where to take products, annual reporting to monitor the program, and provide transparency and again, government oversight and enforcement. So just an overview of EPR in the US today. There's 125 laws. The most recent one was passed in Oregon just last month for mattresses. So we're excited about that. 15 different products, 33 states and DC. So you can see California and Maine leading the charge in terms of number of laws. EPR in California includes carpet, mattress, paint, a number of these other products as well. I do want to call out Supervisor Miley in Alameda County's role in passing the first farms EPR legislation in the US. Again, as Heidi said, was taken all the way to the Supreme Court, but Alameda County really broke open opportunity for California and 6 other states to pass pharmaceuticals laws. So definitely appreciate that, not just for pharmaceuticals, but also for medical sharps as well. So why is EPR helpful in reducing illegal dumping? We think about some of the reasons why dumping occurs, costs of waste management, leads to dumping by residents and small businesses that can't afford to pay for recycling or don't have convenient access. Unscrupulous haulers, possibly to take unwanted tires, for example, from a retailer, cherry pick the good ones and perhaps dump the others. Lack of awareness, again, lack of convenient collection locations. These are all things that can be addressed by EPR. Effective EPR laws can also incentivize reduction of toxics in products and establish performance standards to really push for higher end uses, reuse and recycling, as well as create green jobs. Just wanted to go over some successes and lessons learned in terms of mattresses and paint collected since 2016 and 2012. A significant amount of material has been collected and recycled. Annual carpet recycling rate as of 2020 was more than 3 times the national average. Convenience for mattress and paint collection is in the high 90s for residents, less than 15 miles from collection sites. And in terms of illegal dumping of mattresses, more than 250,000 mattresses have been removed from illegal dumping areas. A few lessons learned. Strong performance goals are important for EPR law to be effective, including goals for reducing illegal dumping, a broad product scope, no program exclusions for products that aren't the highest quality for recycling. Government oversight and enforcement is important, penalties for violation of the law, and plan renewal really to be able to make changes to the program as it goes forward, continuous improvement, lessons learned as the program gets up and running that weren't anticipated in the past. Just wanted to mention some opportunities. EPR is a potential solution for illegal dumping of other products. Gas cylinders are an issue. There's currently battery EPR bills in Connecticut and Vermont on these. And Nate from California Product Stewardship Council spoke about this yesterday in a very interesting presentation about the work that they're doing in California with their Refuel Your Fund campaign. In terms of tires, there's no existing tires EPR laws in the States either currently, but there are laws in Canada, and there's more than 20 countries in Europe that have tires EPR laws. So these programs have been done and have been successful. Just to to sort of look at a comparison between TIRE's EPR and TIRE's fee program. Currently, there is a tire fee program in California. There's a $1.75 charge on the purchase of a new tire. The money goes into a fund that funds grants and loans and subsidies to businesses and other organizations that promote activities or develop technologies for tire recycling. I just say in comparison, in looking at EPR, one thing I would mention too, there's no performance goals. No performance goals on these programs. That's something EPR can do in a tire program. It can increase collection convenience and education, and can provide more dynamic funding as costs increase. The $1.75 tire fee hasn't changed since 2005. And annual reporting also provides transparency and accountability. Just moving to batteries, California does have a batteries EPR law, but there is no annual reporting, no performance goals, no program plan and plan renewal in that program. And it also just covers a few battery types, rechargeables only. It doesn't cover primary batteries or batteries in products. Do you know the California Product Stewardship Council, Californians Against Waste, and others have been working on this in California, and PSI has supported their efforts with national discussions with a number of states, really trying to get next generation EPR battery laws passed. And lastly, just on lamps, lack of a convenient and cost-effective infrastructure for consumers to properly recycle lamps and collect them spurred passage of the California Lighting Efficiency and Toxics Reduction Act in 2007, which convened a task force to recommend an approach. Subsequently, EPR bills were passed in 2009 through 2012, but were not passed into law. But we have seen there are states in the US that have EPR laws. Vermont, for example, has the highest recovery and per capita mercury lamp collection rates nationally due to their program. And I will just mention in California, EPR bills introduced this year include batteries and packaging that were mentioned earlier. So just a bit on how to advance product stewardship to reduce illegal dumping in California. Education and awareness obviously is important. Identifying and spreading awareness of the problems posed by these unwanted products, and understanding and communicating how EPR can address that. Building coalitions, advocating and providing support for those bills that are effective models, and using available resources and tools, model legislation, existing legislation, webinars that provide insights on successes and challenges of existing programs, and really looking at amended laws. The carpet and mattress laws in California were amended to better understand, program weaknesses in those. Just want to highlight some work we did in laying the groundwork with education for safe lamps collection and recycling. PSI recently worked on an outreach campaign in California to try to increase recycling. We developed educational flyers in multiple languages, worker safety poster, also in 3 languages. We collaborated with Green Action for Health and Environmental Justice, and conducted outreach to environmental justice communities through the IVAN network. We also published newsletter articles in Supervisor Miley's newsletter, and also property management associations around the state. And we also developed a how-to guide to advanced safe lights recycling. All these materials are free and available on our website at the link on the slide. And just a little bit about how PSI can help. We have educational resources. We develop fact sheets and how-to guides, free webinars. We develop model legislative language. We pull best practices from around the globe. And we do bill analysis and recommend best practices and improvements to legislation. We do multi-stakeholder dialogue meetings and facilitate discussions about the bill and develop model bill in that way. We also conduct research, pilot projects, and evaluation projects. And I will note that we do provide many free educational resources on our website. We have carpet, mattress, and pesticide stewardship guides, and free webinar recordings and slides. We offer free webinars. Some assistance does require that you join PSI as a member or partner. And then we also do consulting on research projects as well. So that concludes my presentation. Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And back to you, Erin. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Suna, for that overview and that presentation. I think you really speak to some of the importance of some of these very hard to dispose of items really do need that end of life planned for, because if it's not planned for and taken into account as part of the cost of those products, then where does the cost go? And it ends up being borne by our environment, by communities where these materials are dumped. And so that's why it's so important to work in this issue. Now, I know that we've had a couple questions come in through the Q&A feature down below. So Suna, I'm going to ask you to spend the next 15 minutes jumping around in the chat and in the Q&A, interacting with all of our excellent attendees. We have over 300 people who are watching us live right now. And we'd all love to engage with you and hear from you in that Q&A section and in the chat below. So Suna is going to be around for the next 15 minutes, but I want to move us now to another area. And Suna, you can take down your sharing the screen if you could. I'd like to move us to another area of product stewardship that's so important. Because it's also one of those very difficult items to dispose of properly, and that is paint. If you've been working in illegal dumping, if you've seen illegal dumping, then it's very likely that you're familiar with what an illegal dump with a bunch of paint looks like. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, our coalition that we work with in East Oakland was dealing with a massive dump of paint in a creek in East Oakland. It was just a terrible situation. So that paint stewardship piece is really so important. I'd like to welcome Aranzu Moraz, who joined Paint Care in 2018. She's based in Los Angeles and she oversees several counties throughout California. Aranzu was originally born in Spain and has a degree in economics, as well as a master's degree in marketing management from Duesto, I hope I got that right, University. She has over 15 years of experience working across multiple industries and countries, and she's recently earned a certification of zero management from SWANA and is currently a UCLA extension student in sustainability. Aranzu, welcome to the second annual statewide conference on illegal dumping, and we're so excited to have you here to talk about this important issue. Over to you.
Hi, thanks, Erin. Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here to talk a bit about what we do from Paint Care and to share your passion on for this very important initiative, which is to eradicate illegal dumping from our beautiful state. And it is, thanks Suna for your presentation, because it really just explains very well what product stewardship is. And now from a Paint Care perspective, I'm gonna kind of zoom in into what we do being a stewardship program. So hold on for a second. Let me see if I can pull my presentation. Can you see it?
We can see your screen.
Perfect. Is it in full mode presentation? I believe so, right?
Now we do. Yep.
Okay, wonderful. So, so my goals for today's presentation are to really make sure that all of you are aware of what Paint Care does and how you may utilize us as a resource in your illegal dumping efforts, and to start a conversation about how we could potentially fill the gaps when it comes to the paint management of illegally dumped waste. So now I must admit, I don't, there's much that I don't know about how much paint gets illegally dumped and the percentage that paint and coatings represent within your cleanups. So I passed around informally for that data from the different municipalities and organizations, but maybe it seems that there hasn't been much of a formal studies or data collection on that front. So first thing I want to do is take this opportunity to ask from all of you to please share that data or those informal observations with me after this conference, because it's really always important to assess where we are at and how we are going to go about fixing the issue. So Paint Care is a nonprofit organization created by the paint manufacturers to make it easy for households, businesses to recycle leftover paint. So whatever paint stewardship laws gets implemented, Paint Care essentially sets up a network of drop-off locations, arranges for the recycling and the proper disposal, and we conduct public education and outreach. So to provide more background on how this program got started, the American Coatings Association is the paint manufacturers trade association. So it represents 95% of US paint manufacturers, and it was first organized in 1888. It also represents distributors, raw material suppliers to the industry, individuals working in the industry, and so on. So ACA created Paint Care back in 2009. It's the voluntary nonprofit association. So to implement these paint management programs in these states where the paint stewardship laws exist. So it serves as an advocate, compliance assistance research, and community liaison, doing legislative, regulatory, and judicial duties. And in fact, the Paint Care program was modeled, and has to give the credit to Product Care, which is the paint stewardship program in Canada, which began 20 years ago. So basically, manufacturers selling paint in the state, now based on the legislation, they must operate a paint management system for leftovers. So they become responsible for recycling and disposal. Now, there is no mandatory retail takeback, so all of the sites that participate are voluntary. The program must reduce the generation of leftover paint, promote the reuse, provide a system for recycling and the proper disposal. So it is very aligned with the waste management hierarchy of, that we all know: reduce, reuse, and recycle. So the core mission of the program is really to increase the convenience and the recycling opportunities, reduce the cost and responsibility of the state and local governments, manage the paint in an environmentally responsible manner, conduct an education, and establish a sustainable funding mechanism. And right now, Paint Care is in 10 states and District of Columbia. And in fact, our newest program is New York, and it's about to start on May 1st. So we have, as I was mentioning, the network of drop-off sites that we have. It's a mix of municipal HSWs, paint retailers, hardware stores, Habitats for Humanity, landfills, transfer stations. So if your municipality is not signed up with Paint Care, please let me know. There is really no reason why you wouldn't take advantage of this program. So by having this extensive network, we hope that we are making it very easy, very convenient to anyone to dispose of the paint, and that illegal dumping, just because of a lack of convenience, wouldn't be a thing. Of course, we know it still is, but that's kind of the spirit behind it. Aside from the network of drop-off sites, we also provide the large volume pickup service. So for those that have accumulated large volumes of paint, Paint Care offers a free pickup service for 100 gallons or more. And so again, we are just trying to make it easier for anyone to dispose of it and not dump it on the side of the road. So till today, Paint Care has performed around 4,000 pickups across all the programs, and we've collected more than 2 million gallons of paint through this service alone. But additionally, we also do events. These are one-day drive-through paint-only events that we host in those areas where we either we have less concentration of drop-off sites, or there's a large population density, and we've done already about 240 of these events. And of course, then we partner with all of the HSW programs and their one-day events, and we've hosted around 5,000 of those. So what happens to the paint that we collect? Disposition varies by state, but these are the overall numbers across the programs. When it comes to latex paint, 5% is either reused or donated, distributed through the reuse programs that some of the HSW programs have, or reuse stores like Habitat for Humanity. 65% is blended into recycled content paint by the recyclers, and that gets sold domestically or exported. 15% goes to alternative uses like filler for cement and road-based products, or also for decorative ground cover such as garden stones and landscaping materials. And 15% is waste to energy, incinerator, or whenever it's spoiled paint gets landfill. When it comes to oil-based paint, a small amount of that paint gets also reused or donated through these programs I mentioned before, but much of it goes for incineration. So just to share a few milestones from the program, and this is across programs from PaintCare from all of our states. Across our 11 programs, we've collected more than 50 million gallons of paint to date, and we have more than 2,000 permanent drop-off sites, and these are within 15 miles of the population. So, this translates into dollars saved annually for local and state governments, and giving convenience to the public to do the right thing. And if we zoom in into the California program specifically, we have over 800 permanent drop-off sites, and 69% of the total latex paints collected gets recycled back into paint. And 99% of residents live within 15 miles of a drop-off site. So where does PaintCare fit with illegal dumping management? While we try to provide a convenient, no-brainer solution for paint disposal, unfortunately, illegal dumping still happens. And so we want to help you and your communities manage this issue. And I'd love to, have one-on-one conversations with all of you, or we are a team, in fact, of several coordinators across the state based on different territories. And we can explore together how can PaintCare fill the gap, and how could we assist in the paint portion of that illegally dumped waste. So please get in touch. Let's start a conversation. I really appreciate your time and inviting me to this conference. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Aranzu, for that excellent presentation on such an important issue. And of course, Aranzu is going to be available. I already saw several questions coming in through the Q&A feature down below. So she will be in there to answer your questions, and as well as in the chat with any questions that might have been in there as well. Just a couple of reminders for everyone who is attending and who's with us today. We're live on social media, on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. We're using the hashtag today, IDCon22, and you can go right there now and use that as a way to interact and continue the conversation around illegal dumping, and hear from fellow participants and presenters in that way as well. One other question, or not question, but comment before I get to our next panel, is that for anyone who may want to have registered, maybe you didn't register before day one of the conference started, maybe you have a colleague or a friend who you think could get a lot of use out of being in the conference. Unfortunately, because we're using Eventbrite, the registration link no longer works. However, if you send anybody to that Eventbrite page, there is a link to join this conference. So they should be able to join the conference just fine. You can share that link. You can also share the conference packet that we send out to all of you, and is that PDF document with all of the great information about the conference. You can send that out to anybody who you feel would appreciate the conference or some of its content, and they'll be able to use the links there to join as well. So even if you weren't able to register ahead of time, you can register now, or you can still participate through those methods. So wanted to make sure that that was available, and everyone was aware about how they could share this information with their friends, their colleagues, and their networks, and anyone else that they feel might get some value out of this conference. Now, I want to thank all of our speakers so far today. We've had a really insightful day speaking about legislation, how illegal dumping can be tackled nationally and at a state level through legislation, and what that collaboration on a statewide level could look like here in California. We've talked a lot about product stewardship and extended producer responsibility, especially for those hard to dispose of items or things that may be toxic, and especially things like paint as well. But now we want to get into some of the nitty-gritty details around the costs of illegal dumping, which was something that was very important to the Illegal Dumping Task Force, which is the body that helps to put on this conference every year. We were having our planning meetings, and everyone really wanted to know about what are the costs of illegal dumping and how do we even approach that question. And so out of that conversation, we now have an excellent panel that we're all excited to present, which is the costs of illegal dumping. And we'll be approaching this cost from a variety of perspectives. What are the costs to franchise haulers, to cities or counties or special districts? What are the costs to community members? To what's the cost of a child having to step over illegal dumping on their way to school? We really want to take that broad, expansive view of costs. And so I'd like to welcome our panelists and moderators to the stage. Our moderator today is going to be Peter Schultz Allen. And he has an extensive experience with green stormwater infrastructure, litter, and illegal dumping management, zero waste policies, complete and green streets, sustainable landscapes, and urban forestry. He managed the environmental programs for the city of Emeryville from 2002 to 2013, including the city's award-winning Bay-Friendly Stormwater Program. And since 2013, he's been providing GI, LID, and litter-related technical assistance and program support to staffs around the Bay Area. With us today, we have Bill Crodinger, one of our excellent partners from Argent Materials, who's worked with us very closely. We have David Stratton, who is the Area Director of Finance and Business Partners for Waste Management. Violet Henderson, who's a resident of West Oakland and has done some really excellent research on illegal dumping in her studies at UC Berkeley. And Stephanie Becker, who is here representing Cal Recycle. So Peter, I'd like to pass it over to you. You guys have the next 35 minutes, and we're just so excited to hear from all of you.
Great. Thanks, Erin, very much. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
All right. I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint presentation. We're going to start with just a few quick slides. Okay, so is the full screen showing? Is everybody seeing the full screen? Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So yes, as Erin mentioned, we're going to talk about the costs of illegal dumping. And I want to thank Erin and Supervisor Miley for inviting all of us here on this panel today. So just I wanted to make sure that we had the full bios for the recording of the presentation here. So I'm not going to go into more detail. Erin did a great job of already introducing everybody. So thank you, Erin. So here's Stephanie and Violet's bios. And then we also have Bill and David's bios here as well. So we'll move on, and just wanted to briefly touch on the different types of the costs related to illegal dumping. Of course, the first one that everybody thinks about is the financial costs, and there are different types of financial costs, both to the state at the statewide level, billions of dollars, and right now we have billions of dollars being spent to try to clean up the state and beautify sites around the state with Caltrans and other stakeholders. There's cost to the municipality, cost to haulers and the private sector. Then there's other types of costs that we're going to talk about, the physical and emotional costs, both to the personal, at the personal level and the community level. And then there are other types of costs that we won't get into as much detail today, maybe with such as community costs or environmental justice or equity costs and cost of the environment and legal costs. Then for the financial costs, there are different factors and metrics. I've mentioned a few of these already, but for municipalities, it's typically removal costs, labor and equipment, and sometimes disposal. The franchised hauler may be involved as well, and they may be the main player on the disposal aspect of it, but they also have their own labor and equipment costs. And then for private sector stakeholders and agencies that are or organizations, they have their own costs. And there are different types of metrics to measure these different costs. I won't go into these, but here are some typical ones. So my final slide, I just wanted to give an example for a medium-sized city in the San Francisco Bay Area. And this is based on some actual data for this example city. They spent $300,000, and this is just the municipal costs in 2021 for about 1,300 incidents of illegal dumping in their city, but they also used their franchised hauler to handle and manage those illegal dumping incidents. And the franchised hauler also had $800,000 in costs. So $1.1 million total. And back in 2016 or 2006, excuse me, they were only spending about $200,000 to manage their illegal dumping. And you can see on the bottom here, just the last few years of the number of incidents, which has gone up and down over the years. But anecdotally, the hauler is telling me that the tons per incident in 2021 really increased a lot and doubled, basically. So there are huge costs. I mean, if you take this and you project it out upon other municipalities around the state, I don't think this is abnormal or different from what other municipalities are seeing. It's a huge burden on municipalities and haulers around the state and for the state itself. Okay, thank you. So now we're going to go into the panel discussion. So I will stop sharing and we'll go back to our panel view here. And so we have our four panelists, Stephanie, Bill, David, and Violet. And we want to start with the first question for each of you in a 2 or 3 minutes, if you can, for each of you. In the work that you've done, what do you see as the costs of illegal dumping? And those costs can be different types of costs, depending on the type of work that you've done. So maybe we'll start with Stephanie and go ahead and give us some information on your experience.
Thanks, Peter. So again, representing Cal Recycle grants in rural areas, the environmental impact of illegal dumping can be detrimental and can be one of the biggest costs of illegal dumping. You saw that briefly in the slides that Peter shared. So you're starting with litter, then it's going to pile up and expand to further full-fledged illegal disposal sites. And then if you want more information on illegal disposal sites, I'm presenting tomorrow, the classification on those. But depending on their location and their proximity to waterways, it can be very impactful and very costly, sometimes very costly to clean up. So multiple entities, that's another cost, are usually involved with illegal dumping. Since no one entity or organization or group is responsible for illegal dumping, another cost would be taking away time and resources for those with other responsibilities. My examples are public works, parks departments, law enforcement, ag commissions, etc. And time's needed to coordinate these cleanup efforts, and also as a cost. You have your administrative work, and then if you're lucky enough to have a grant, you have grant reporting time as well. And then for farmers and ranchers, currently they're facing illegal dumping in their fields. So this is going to impact productivity, contaminating crops, and get into our food resources. So those are some. And I think in the order of panelists, I think Violet, it's your turn.
Yeah, yes, Violet, if you want to go next and give us some background on your work with costs of illegal dumping.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Peter and Stephanie. Yes, the cost of illegal dumping that I've seen in my research is how it affects families, from the senior citizen who likes to go out each day and take a walk. And as they're walking, they come across items that are on their pathway, on the sidewalk, that can become a hazard for them. For the parent who's taking their child to school, whether they're walking on the street or if they're driving in the car, it's a sight of, that is detrimental. It makes you angry. It makes you anxious. And then as children are growing and developing, the parents that I've had an opportunity to speak with, they question how are they going to explain this to their children? What is this social situation? Is it going to become normal? Are we ever going to get rid of this illegal dumping? And so it becomes internalized, and people start wondering, well, since my community looks this way and it's trash, am I trash? So you question your positionality in the community, and then you start questioning the city in which you live in. Is the city, am I worthy to live in the city, or is the city doing enough to get rid of this illegal dumping? And so it kind of just mushrooms. And as we wake up each morning and we find clean streets, we find that our attitudes are so much different and healthier, and our minds are just set at a pace that we can function throughout our day. But when we're dealing with trash on the street constantly, from one week to the other, and we don't know if illegal dumping is going to happen this week or if it's going to get picked up in time, it just is upsetting to most people. And so that's what I've been able to establish.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Violet. I totally agree with everything you said. And I think there's also other, just the smell of illegal dumping sometimes can be horrible, aside from the way that it looks or the way that it makes you feel. Okay, let's move on to Bill, coordinator. You can go next with your experience.
Yeah, good morning. First of all, thank you to Supervisor Miley and Aaron, of course, for this great conference and for hosting, Peter. I thought a lot about what I could talk about that would be helpful. And, we're a little atypical. We have an actual crew that goes out and cleans up. They have a truck. They have equipment that goes with that. And I thought what would make the most sense is maybe breaking it down into what the actual costs for us are. And you can look at it one of two ways. We've got a relationship with the city, so we don't pay to dispose of what we pick up. But removing that cost, what we've discovered is we have about a $271,000 a year budget, but that's over about 22,000 linear feet of streets. And I break up the street as one side of the street and other side of the street. It's actually two full different lanes. So 11,000 feet of street. So what we found is that our costs are about 25 cents a linear foot. So depending upon the type of business you are, you could have a 50-foot frontage or 40-foot. I think the average residence is around 50. The minimum commercial is around 50 in Alameda County. So you could do the math yourself. What could decrease that amount is if you happen to have enough capacity in your dumpster and your trash can that you can pick up. For example, an average home is going to generate 11 pounds based on the averages we've seen. Typically, homeowners will see about 50% of the trash that we find on the commercial dumps seems to be, with less people looking. There's more dumped, of course. So when there's someone at home or somebody appears to be at home, there seems to be less. So it's about 11 pounds a week. If you can get that in your dumpster, it's really just going to be your labor and maybe a couple extra garbage bags. If you're not buying equipment and hiring people, we found that maybe 2 hours a day, if you have a small frontage and you can send somebody out with a picker and a bag and, you don't have anything too extravagant to pick up, that could significantly decrease the costs. Where we've run into some roadblocks, though, have been the items that everyone's talked about, the paint, the needles. The needles, our folks have been trained how to deal with the needles, but they require extra time and the proper sort of equipment to pick them up. And paint requires the right sort of gathering, and it needs to be kept separate. We have a deal with a local tire shop who, because we clean up in front of their place, they take our tires. And maybe some of the advantages that we didn't realize in the beginning is there's a lot of steel dumped, we recycle that. There's a lot of cardboard dumped, we recycle that, we actually get paid. There are some little hidden positives, but On average, it looks like about 25 cents a linear foot, which if you're a big business, it's about $13 a linear foot annually. And you just do the math, 1,000 linear feet, you're going to spend $13,000 picking up somebody else's trash in front of your business. So it is a big problem. It's expensive. But I can tell you the last thing I'll say is if you stay on it, if you keep it clean, it does get better. We've seen our 6 tons a week on average over these 22,000 feet go down to about 2. So it has improved.
Thanks, Bill. And that, just one clarification, you said that 25 cents a linear foot, was that per day or per week, or what was that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's per week.
Okay, per week. Great. Okay, let's go next to David. Give us your experiences.
Yeah, hey, thanks. Thanks a lot. And Bill did a really good job of kind of breaking it down from a granular level. I think I'll keep it a little higher level. From our perspective, there's 2 different major types of costs. There's the collection cost, and then there's a processing cost. And I think as we've talked about, there can be a number of different materials at an illegal dump site, which makes the cost projection really tricky. And it really comes down to finding the correct and appropriate home for processing of that material. It's because it's a manual process. It's very labor intensive. It's very expensive. Our industry over the years has done a lot to try to automate as much of the recycling and garbage pickup as we can. But with illegal dumping, it's all manual. It's all labor, usually 2-person crews going out there, depending on the size and the nature of the dump. So for us, it's on the collection side, very labor intensive. On the processing side, it's machinery intensive. It depends on what processing capabilities we have, and if we don't have them, like for paint processing or handling some of the med waste, like the needles that were referenced, you got to find the right outlet for it. So it becomes a little bit of a shell game, and it's very expensive and manual.
Right. Thanks, David. Yeah, so people, please put your questions in the Q&A box down below. We'll try to get to some of them if we have time. And so some of you did talk a little bit about ranges of costs that you're seeing, but if you didn't, I'd like to ask you to now, we'll go back through the 4 speakers in kind of maybe reverse order and just say, are you seeing any kind of a typical cost? Like maybe for David, do you work with jurisdictions and are they telling you we spend X amount per year? And it's really hard to try to, do we talk about a per capita cost when we're talking about a city, or is it a per business, like Bill was kind of saying? We're going to just scratch the surface of this issue today, but what's your kind of take home messages on, and how much is it going up? I mean, I think that's a big part of it too, that it's not a static issue. It's been getting worse and worse, I think, for most jurisdictions, probably across the country. I don't know about other countries, but certainly the United States, I think it's getting worse. So we'll start with David and give us your thoughts on that question.
Sure. And Peter, I would respond by saying it really varies depending on the size and the nature, the size of the community, and really the nature of the overall collection program in the community. If there are outlets for residents to handle and get rid of the material, then there's less of a pressure to illegally dump. And so what I've seen where you have a residential program, or maybe there's a well-managed, well-advertised bulky program at the curb, there's an outlet for the residents to get rid of some of the harder to get to dispose of items like a mattress or a couch or a white good. Absent of those, or if you have a program that's not embedded with the rate structure, if it's a per fee service, then we've seen kind of the incident rate of illegal dumps escalate rather significantly. And as for how those costs have kind of worked over the years, because they're labor, because they're transportation related, because they're processing related, they're all escalating at clips well above inflation in the last handful of years, in my opinion.
Thanks. Bill, what's been your experience over the last few years, and do you have any thoughts on the metrics or things like that?
Yeah, we've seen an increase, labor about 25%, equipment 10%, but of course, both of those have additional expenses, which are the big quit is still in effect. And we're looking to replace our trash truck, and it's probably a year and a half before we can get a new one, just a simple truck. So cost is one thing, but availability, and then availability of people, it's already tough enough, but to get somebody who's willing to pick up trash, particularly in a neighborhood where they grow up or they live, it's quite common for them to be harassed and, you know, kind of laughed at. So it takes a very particular person. That I consider to be a cost, because those people, like we've talked about before, the combination of humility and work ethic, it's a rare breed. So.
Okay, thanks. Stephanie, maybe before we get to Violet, I saw one question here. What is the percent of tonnage that hazardous waste was found in the illegal dumping statewide in the last 3 calendar years? A very specific question. I don't know if you can answer that. Maybe if you need more time, or you can get back to that person, but do you have any thoughts on that?
I think there's a fine line between solid waste, and then you have hazardous waste, universal waste. So what's getting illegally dumped? I'll get back to that. So I'll get back to that. But yeah, so Cal Recycle's got to be mindful. And then actually at a presentation tomorrow, our sister agency is the Department of Toxic Substance Control under the umbrella of the EPA. So but I will get back to you. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot there. I will say, as I think Bill or David mentioned, there are these different categories of materials that you find out when in illegally dumped materials. It can be things that can't be landfilled, such as tires and the white goods like the refrigerators. Then you have household hazardous waste or other types of hazardous waste. There's the e-waste, also can't be landfill. So you can't just pick it all up and put it in the back of a rear loader and bring it to the landfill. You have to handle it correctly. And if you don't handle it correctly, you might make it worse. If there's some kind of hazardous material there and you start to spill that or spread it around, or if there's batteries that could start a fire in the back of the garbage truck, then that's a big problem for haulers, as well as all the batteries that are in more and more devices. So let's move on to Violet. For you, how do you try to start to, in your research that you're doing, how do you look at the different range of costs, or how do you try to quantify that?
That's a difficult question to answer. How do you quantify it? Because what I've done in my research, my most recent research, I went around asking questions of approximately 30 people. How do they feel about the illegal dumping, and the emotional effects on it? And, they gave me a range of questions, but to just quantify it and just put it in a chart and in a graph and say this is what it presents, I have not found a way to do that. But I listen to the stories, and I do. I live right near Wood Street, and I do understand that people are frustrated, and it's a process where people are blaming the homeless, because normally, oftentimes when you see illegal dumping, you see homeless encampments there too. And so what I've heard is people come to the homeless encampments and ask, can we dump this in your community, so then that way we won't have to take it to the dump. So what they're doing is trying to bypass going to the dump in the landfill, and maybe because they don't have the funds to pay for it themselves, and figure that sooner or later the city government is going to come by with a truck and they're going to clean it up. So that way they're not really having to pay anything themselves, except for give a few dollars to people who are living unhoused. So some way or another in their mind, they think that they're helping the homeless community by dumping in the community, in their neighborhoods, in their encampments. But in fact, it's causing more harm, because of course, there's rodents, and also other type of diseases can fester and bring more health concerns to those individuals. And so overall, as a city, we're all suffering, slow violence and all these structural violences, and how to put it on paper to show that, I don't know, but I have listened to the testimonies and the emotions of the people that I've spoken with.
Yes, absolutely. And have you, in your discussions with anybody, had anybody been pricked by a needle?
No, they have not been pricked by needles, but they have come across a lot of biohazards. There are people in the community that have adopted a spot, and they go out on a weekly basis and they just try to keep the neighborhood clean because they do understand, as Nate Miley has mentioned, that illegal dumping has no boundaries. And then oftentimes if you dump, then it creates more dumping and people will just are just drawn to that place like a magnet. So, but there are biohazards and dirty diapers and all those type of things that have been seen on the streets.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Stephanie, let's you can be the last one for this particular question. Are you seeing ranges or anything typical with the jurisdictions that you work with? Is there any way to kind of calculate what an average is or things like that?
I'd say like a farm and ranch cleanup, depending the area, like 10,000 to about 35,000 with everything. Some of this will include prevention measures. So the people I connect with, jurisdictions, tribes, resource conservation districts, farmers and ranchers have all said they've owned the property for a while. Yes, we've seen an increase. And yeah, it's competing labor costs, quick, fuel prices, equipment mileage, equipment rental. Are you competing with the construction industry, depending on who's doing it? Community cleanups, the cost for material, the barriers. Once you clean it up, if you have the luxury of doing that, the steel prices, can impact. And then the different types, I have e-waste and batteries, the different types of disposal costs, which waste David spoke to, that can change. So yeah, depending on where in the state. Thanks,
yeah,
Peter.
Right. There's a lot of factors. Okay, so we have a question from Mary Forte. How can cost information be used as part of educating the community and changing residents, youth, and adults' behavior around illegal dumping? For example, this cost information should be discussed in high school and civics and economics classes. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Any of the four panelists? I'll just, if you want to use your raise hand feature at the bottom there, that's one way we could do it. If anybody wants to go ahead and jump in on that one. Basically, I think she's talking about education and is it effective to reduce costs, or if we bring up this cost information, it does seem like if a city is spending a lot of money, that's a good piece of information to get out to the community. Yeah, David.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I think it can only help if these are resources being spent on something that can otherwise be directed for another purpose. So I think it's a great idea to have it, in a high school class or just, advertised throughout the community. Because again, if a city or a county is spending money on illegal dumping, then they're not spending that money somewhere else. And I know there's a better use for that funds. So.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody else? As I mentioned in one of my slides, that's a big hit probably to the general fund, that $300,000 that the jurisdiction is paying out of their own general fund, and then to the ratepayers, that $800,000 at the hauler, that doesn't just get absorbed usually by the hauler, that gets passed on to the ratepayers. So everybody pays for it, but it may be a little bit hidden in their bill when their bill goes up. Okay. Well, let's, we have one final question, I think, and we'll see if we have any more questions from the audience. What are the most cost-effective ways to manage illegally dumped materials? And David, you mentioned this, that it takes a lot of manual labor. I'm also seeing in some jurisdictions, I guess once they have identified certain items, they have like a truck with a claw on the back with a crane, and so they can pick up a large sofa, or they can pick up a refrigerator if it's done in a way that's allowed, so they don't, with the refrigerator, they got to make sure if there's coolant in there that they don't release that coolant when they're picking it up. But that's, I've heard, is one way to reduce the costs, is to try to use some equipment like that. David, do you want to start on that one?
Yeah, you can. And it depends on the nature of the illegal dump. Obviously, the terrible situation that was referenced earlier, where there was paint in a creek. You got to kind of go in and assess that and say, who are the experts? Who do we bring in to handle this? Every one of these is its own little case to solve. If it's just a couch in an open field, it's either a two-person crew, or you can have a crane or grapple hook come and grab that. That's always a possibility. I would say, and this isn't trying to avoid the question, that the best way to minimize, or the most cost-effective way to handle illegal dumping is prevention. It's assessing the entirety of the solid waste program in a community and figuring out how to give people opportunities to get this material where it needs to be instead of dumped illegally. And it, because there's a cost no matter what. Wherever it goes, either on the side of a curb through a bulky program or to a transfer station or to a recycling facility, that's a cost. The illegal dumping is the least effective way, cost-effective way to handle it, and it's 2 or 3 times easily more expensive than handling it correctly on the front end.
Yeah, that's a great point, David. Prevention. What is it? An ounce of prevention, it's worth a pound of cure, right? So in this case, picking it up afterwards is going to be a lot more expensive. And we have a lot of great programs that, like Heidi Sanborn talked about earlier, with all these extended producer responsibility programs, where you target paint, you target mattresses, you target and different items that are maybe the most problematic. And so then maybe you don't see those items as much. I think we still have some work to do on tires. Someone mentioned in the Q&A or the chat down there. And there's certainly a lot of items that could be better managed, but yeah, prevention is definitely the best way to do that. Anybody else want to tackle this one? Bill, are you guys just out there picking it up by hand, or are you using what kind of equipment are you using to pick up stuff, if any?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I agree totally with David. I wrote down prevention and scratched it out. I didn't think it applied, but it really does. We use everything from small hand shovel to I've had our big 10-yard loader come down the street to pick up a pile of dirt that was dropped in the middle of the street. But I think the 3 E's really, right? I think the supervisor came up with the cure. One interesting thing, though, that I want to say after doing this for a couple of years and being out there many, many times, is that I would say that the people that don't know, there aren't many confused people about what they're doing. If you come upon someone dumping, they can't get away fast enough. I mean, breaking speed limits, not stopping at stop signs. I would say 99.9% of people know that they're not supposed to be dumping their trash in society's lap. It's not as though they don't know. The thing I would say beyond that is that what has worked really well for us is community and consistency. We have neighbors who are good at things we're not good at. We're good at things they're not good at. And being out there every day or every week, once it gets clean and stays clean, it's much more likely to divert more dumping.
Yeah, I don't know, Violet, in your work, have you talked to anybody who says they know someone who's done some illegal dumping? Did you get any feedback? I think you mentioned this a little bit. What are the reasons why people do the illegal dumping? And is that part of your research also?
Me personally, on my way to church service on a Sunday morning, I was passing a street that normally gets dumped on, and it took me like 4 or 5 efforts to finally get someone to come out and clean up the dump site. And this young man and his father was offloading a sofa. And I asked them why were they doing it. They said because they're renters and the landlord would not allow them to put it in front of their home. So those type of deterrents are, they help people to make decisions that are not good for the community. So they're taking it away and putting it in my neighborhood, but then eventually they took it away, and I'm sure that they dumped it somewhere else. But now with Waste Management in the city of Oakland opening up the dump sites, now people can call in and have these bulky items picked up. And that's a win-win for everyone. So now that you don't have to have the landlord to do it for you, it's much easier. And I think with the education component, allowing every person to know that this is available to them, then it will stop the illegal dumping on our streets, especially the big bulky items. And then also in our education process, talking with the children in the school, sometimes our children will come home and pressure us unknowingly, adults, how to behave better in society. So definitely putting that element into the school systems. And then I remember growing up, I'm old enough to know that we used to have don't pollute slogans on TV and slogans about being a litter bug. So I think that public service type announcements will be helpful to us on the long run.
Yeah, great. Excellent points, Violet. Stephanie, do you have any closing remarks for us, if you want, on what's happening kind of at the state level from your perspective? Are there, and I think one of the things we've heard is that, you know, if one community has great services like, so Oakland now, I think this is a great improvement in their service to, especially the multifamily residents, if they can do it, arrange it themselves without having to get the property manager or property owner to do it, to arrange a bulky item collection. Is that something that the state's looking at, is having consistency between different jurisdictions with the services they offer? Because if one offers it and one doesn't, then they just go next door and maybe dump it next door.
With this question, so veering a little with the state, I'd say education. I'd agree with what was said. Education, aka prevention. You know, reporting it, having a means to reporting it. You know, depending on the type of material, reuse. So that would be great, right? Reuse, recycling. You know, as far as cost, you know, what we're looking at, and then as the supervisor said, it's just combining resources. Peter, as you mentioned, Caltrans is doing a good job on that, and illegal dumping knows no bounds, right? So it's having a good network of your partners, your cleanup groups, and just keeping your network locally, you know, because a lot of the times some of the issues are depending on where it is in the state, they can change a bit. So that's what I'm going to add. Thanks, Peter.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. And I think the Idtac that you're now the coordinator is a great organization and group for trying to figure out some of these things, as well as this Alameda County group as well. So I think we're out of time. Thank you very much to all of our presenters, our panelists, excuse me, and for all of your knowledge and sharing that with us today. And I'm going to hand it back to Aaron, I think.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Violet, Stephanie, Bill, David. Absolutely incredible panel. I was just engrossed the entire time. I could see the audience had so many questions. So thanks for engaging with that. Just a reminder to all of our audience members, this panel is now going down into that Q&A feature and into the chat. So if you have questions that you'd like to see answered by this group of people, put them in the Q&A feature and we'll get you an answer today. So they'll be down there for the next 15 minutes, hanging out, answering your questions, interacting with all of you, because that's what this really is about. We're now going to have a brief break. And so I just like to, we've been going at this for 2 hours. It's been a long day so far. So take the next 5 minutes to grab a drink, grab a snack, use the restrooms, do the things that you need to do so that you can come back refreshed for our final hour of the day. But for those of you who are sticking around, we have a couple of polls that we'll be doing right now to see how well you've been paying attention. Let's go ahead and put up our first poll. So the first poll is, where are you participating from? We've heard this morning about a lot of the members coming in from all over the country, all over the state, all over the world. And so we want to know from you where you are coming from. It's an open-ended answer. You have 200 characters, but let's keep it brief. And we'll give it just a few more minutes or moments for you to complete that answer. Obviously, no right or wrong answer with this one. But while we're letting people finish this out, just a reminder that this conference is being recorded and will be made available to anyone who registered for the conference. We had over 850 people register for the conference. Oh, they're saying no poll came up. It might be your version of Zoom. I saw it on our presenter view, so we're definitely seeing it. Maybe your version of Zoom. So thanks for letting us know. We'll go ahead and close that poll down and we'll just see how the answers go. Well, this is fun because it's been a new feature that we were trying out to see this open-ended answer. And I guess this is what we get for testing it live here. Looks like 100% of people answered the question, but we don't actually get to see some of those answers. So thanks for answering that question. And feel free to put it in the chat where you're from, because we'd love to see the diversity of where everyone's coming from and how you heard about this conference. The next poll question, hopefully everyone should get this one since this is more traditional, is what type of organization are you with? Are you with a state government, a county government, a city government, a special district? Are you here representing a private business, nonprofit, a faith group? Are you a private citizen just here because you're really interested in addressing illegal dumping? Let us know right now. We're going to give it about maybe 10, 15 more seconds in this. Just want to also remind everybody while we're letting this poll conclude, Earth Day is coming up this Friday. So this Friday is Earth Day, and this whole weekend is Earth Day weekend. Yesterday, we sent everybody a list of almost 20 cleanups that are happening throughout the state of California. And we're encouraging all of our participants at this statewide conference to go out and practice what you've learned this Earth Day weekend at one of those exciting cleanup events. So they're mostly in the morning. This is an excellent opportunity to get out, to get involved in that nitty-gritty of tackling illegal dumping and making a difference in our communities. Let's go ahead and end the poll and see the results. Wow, so we have a lot of people coming in from a lot of different places. This is very exciting. So 8% are coming in from state governments, 36%, a whole third of the conference coming in from county governments is our highest, 30%, next highest, coming in from city governments. Special districts, we have 6%, always love our special districts. Private businesses representing at 8% as well, 8%, yes, and then nonprofits equally at 8%. Nobody here from faith groups, but we do have 4% of our participants today are private citizens. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. And do we have any other polls queued up and ready to go? Excellent. So here's a question about some of the content that we learned today. So let's see how well you've been paying attention. What is an effective approach to eradicating illegal dumping? Is it truth in labeling? Continuing the annual statewide illegal dumping conference, sale bans on littered products, educational research and opportunities, or is it all of the above? We'll give it just a couple more seconds to see how everybody comes in on this. And while you do, I'd like to also remind everybody that we are on social media using the hashtags IDCon. I've been on there today posting some of the exciting content that we've been hearing and also sharing some behind the scenes views from our IDCon 22 headquarters. So check that out on Twitter if you're there using the hashtag IDCon. Let's go ahead and end the poll and see how we did. All right, so 82%, or the vast majority, came in that all of the above are effective approaches to eradicating illegal dumping. And that's true because these are all ways of eradicating or preventing illegal dumping. And they're all really important things that we learned about today. Excellent. So thank you so much to everybody who participated in these polls with us. We really appreciate you being here and interacting with this conference. We're just wrapping up our break right now. And so I wanted to move us into our next block. We'll go ahead and close down the polls and the slides and move us into our next block, which is going to be our eradication block for the day. We're going to be doing this for the next about 50 minutes. And we'll start off with a really exciting presentation from the Los Angeles County Department of Public Works about using smartphones to address illegal dumping. And so in order to do this conversation, I would like to welcome from the Los Angeles County Department of Public Works, Peter Nguyen, Juan Parra, and Natalie Mann. Peter is an applications developer for the Los Angeles County Public Works. in its information technology division. He deploys and maintains in-house as well as commercial off-the-shelf software specialized in the realm of asset management. Welcome, Peter. Juan is an administrative assistant 3 for Los Angeles County Public Works in its Environmental Protection Program Division, Residential Trash Collection Section. He helps oversee solid waste collection contracts and is a liaison with Public Works Information Technology Division for the Trash Monitoring Program application, which we'll be learning more about today. And Natalie is an application developer in the Los Angeles County Public Works Information Technology Systems and Applications GIS unit. She helps develop, support, and maintain Public Works mobile and desktop GIS applications. And we're so excited to learn about the use of the latest technology to address illegal dumping. Over to you.
All right. Thank you, Aaron, and Supervisor Miley. As Aaron mentioned, my name is Juan Parra, and we're going to be giving a presentation on the Solid Waste Incident Tracking SWIT and Trash Monitoring Program TMP applications, which are 2 applications that work together that we use to report illegal dumping and other trash collection issues in the unincorporated areas of Los Angeles County. Next slide. So a quick overview of the presentation. Paper forms are used to report issues of illegal dumping and other trash collection issues, and they were then sent to office staff overseeing contracts who then forward the information to the waste haulers for collection. The TMP application, which is an application that our contract monitors use on their county-issued cell phones, was integrated with our agency's intranet application, which is a solid waste incident tracking site. And the SWIT site automates routing notifications for these cases and allows office staff to review as well as input cases from the office. SWIT also includes other consent functionalities for running and exporting reports. Next slide. As you can see right here, this is an example of our old paper monitoring forms that our contract monitors were used to using for many years. The data on these paper monitoring forms was transferred to the TMP application where the field monitors could input descriptive information digitally. So this, of course, streamlined the process of reporting and also allowed us to save some trees in the process. So pretty much going from the old school way of doing things to the new school with technology. So next slide. Business workflow. As you can see the steps right here, we have the incident intake process, incident routing, and post routing. So for the intake process, how do we get word of illegal dumping and intake that data? Well, contract monitors physically report via the TMP application. Office staff intake from many other sources and input through SWIT, with the other sources being the illegal dumping hotline voicemail during non-business hours, and direct contact with Public Works personnel. Routing. What do we do with the reported incidents, and how do we determine who to notify? Well, this used to be a manual process, but we now automatically route them based on location to a contracted waste hauler, or we manually route in special cases. Post routing. How do we keep track of incidents and ensure they are handled in a timely manner? And what do we do with the data afterwards to improve on places we lack? We track our requests as needed. We send reminders to agencies on a regular basis, and we use reports and metrics to analyze the data afterward. And also compliance reports for the hauler get sent out every business day by email, and they state the cases that are near and out of compliance, currently out of compliance, and by how many days are out of compliance. So it's a pretty good tool that they can use to prioritize collection. Next slide. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Peter Nguyen, who's going to go a little bit more in depth about the solid waste incident tracking SWIT application.
All right. So I'm going to briefly go over the workflow of an incident from a high-level technical perspective. First off, data entry. So we have 2 methods of data entry, one being SWIT and one being TMP. When an incident is reported, it enters a database in one of these 2 methods. And both of these applications are pointed at the same database. And before anything else happens, we pre-process the data for use later in our routing steps and our analytic steps. So pre-processing consists of appending any metadata that we'll need later to the incoming record. And some examples of this are what road maintenance district this incident belongs to, what waste hauler collection service area this incident belongs to, what supervisory district, et cetera. So there's a lot of extra metadata that we can grab and just append to this case or this incident, just depending on that location that it appears at. So yes, we use this pre-processed data for automatic routing, as well as some analytics later that I'll just briefly talk about. And all of this is handled via a background scheduled job that runs on our servers every about 5 minutes or so. The next step is routing. So routing is handled using that pre-processed data that we generated earlier. We found out, hey, which waste hauler collection service area that this incident belongs to. And the determination of the route is made via the intersection of that specific incident's coordinates and our own internal waste hauler collection service area layers. And once we determine which waste hauler is responsible, we can then do some automatic routing, which is just essentially sending an email notification to the appropriate waste hauler agency. But manual routing can also be done within the web-based desktop application SWIT. And then next is compliance. So generally haulers or any agencies that we route these incidents to are expected to communicate back to us timely when an incident is resolved, when it's picked up, when maybe they've gone out and they've found that, hey, there isn't any illegal dumping there. Generally, they're expected to just communicate back and let us know when something has been closed out, and then we do that. But what we also do is we send out sort of compliance reports every day in the mornings to each of these agencies with open cases in our system, so that they can kind of have like a running list of what they need to kind of get to on a day-by-day basis. And these lists are sorted in a specific order that is most useful to them, which is generally date and descending order. And the last step would be analytics. So we have some in-house tools that allow us to track these incidents on a detailed basis or on a high-level basis when it comes to things like metrics or heat maps or anything GIS powered. But all of that is done using that pre-processed data earlier, where we know, which supervisory district this thing belongs to, or this incident belongs to, or what road maintenance district it belongs to, when it was created, et cetera. There's just a lot of metadata that we have to work with at the analytics stage that we can use to make our efforts hopefully more effective. And that's pretty much it on the technical perspective. I'm just going to pass it back over to Natalie. And she's going to talk about some of the stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter. So before we hop into the mobile side of the application, I'm going to touch base on some mapping capabilities that are available since we've integrated our applications. So with the app integration, we've been able to create different web mapping visualization tools like the one you see on the screen. This particular one is embedded in Peter's SWIT desktop application, and there are some widgets or tools available for our staff to be able to query and filter these cases by any desired criteria. This may include the incident type, the location, or the date range in which the case was reported or closed out. These maps also include reference layers that may be of importance, like our illegal dumping hot zones, supervisorial districts, and other geographic information that may help our staff to visualize the cases as well as create quick maps as needed. And in this specific screenshot, we're just showing clustering of our illegal dumping cases for the past year. This just serves as a visual aid for our staff when reviewing the concentration of cases. On the next slide, similarly, we're just showing a heat map of the cases, and this is just another visual aid for our staff. With that, let's go ahead and jump into the mobile application. So Trash Monitoring Program, or TMP, is our mobile side of things, and it's built in the Esri ArcGIS environment. Originally, it was built for use in Collector for ArcGIS. However, Esri has retired support for that application, so we have since transitioned to ArcGIS field maps. The apps have very similar capabilities, and the transition has been fairly smooth so far. But on the screen, we're showing the maps that our field staff have access to. So the first one being the TMP field map, and this one is just a map that is for use when our users have good cellular reception. It has additional reference layers that may be helpful for our staff, like our parcels, the waste collection service areas, and these aren't necessarily offline enabled, but it does help our users when reporting cases. We also have an offline map available, and this is a very minimalist map. It just has the layers available for our staff to report new cases in a very simple background or base map. So essentially, for some of our areas, there is poor cellular reception. This might be areas like the Santa Monica Mountains or Malibu, where our contract monitors may still need to be able to report issues. So this map does give them the ability to do so, and they can sync their data back up once they regain better cellular reception. With transitioning our staff from a paper process to a mobile app, we did have to provide a lot of trainings, and we also provided a step-by-step user guide. So it did take quite a bit of patience, and even to this day, we do get the occasional help call where we'll have to talk our staff through, logging in or some troubleshooting if things are down. So it is a process that we'll touch on in our challenges and learning moments later on. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and go into an overview of the reporting aspect. So this is just some screenshots of what it's like for our field staff to report a new case. So the first step is they usually have GPS enabled when using the app, so it'll take them to their current location. We ask that they try to adjust their point to be as precise as possible. So if the dumping is in an alleyway or the street, they can adjust their point to be as precise as possible so that the case is properly routed to the right agency. Once they've got their point pinpointed, they can take photos of the items. A lot of the fields that they have to fill out are pre-populated, so it's intuitive and they don't spend too much time inputting information, especially if they're parked somewhere or on the go. So things like the source and the incident type are usually pre-populated. We ask that they specify an item if possible. So it's just another indicator for what the waste hauler needs to be on the lookout for, although they still have the pictures as a frame of reference. The volume of items usually defaults to less than one dumpster, but if there's more than that out there, they can go ahead and specify it as such. And they're also able to specify location detail, especially for illegal dumping. If it's in the alley or street, like we mentioned, they are able to specify that. The priority will normally default to normal, but the contract monitor or field staff is able to elevate that priority to emergency if needed. And of course, they can add some description or comments too, if applicable. Once everything looks good to go, they can hit the submit button at the top right. And once it's submitted, like Peter mentioned, his scheduled task will run every few minutes to route the case to the proper agency to be addressed. All right, so on the next slide, like we mentioned with our integrations, we've been able to create different web mapping applications that assist our staff. So while Peter's application is meant for our internal county intranet use, we also have a web mapping application that is accessible from ArcGIS Online or the internet. Similarly, it allows our staff to be able to review any cases, filter by any desired criteria, and this has been helpful, especially with work from home and teleworking, to be able to still access and review cases this way. With that, I'll go ahead and pass it back over to Juan to review some of the challenges and learning moments from this project.
Thank you, Nelly. So challenges and learning moments, as Natalie mentioned earlier, field monitors were used to paper forms for a very long time, and we're not, a lot of them were not the most tech savvy, and they were pretty set in their current workflow. So it did take a lot of trainings, refreshers, stopping by the desk at IT, phone calls, and thorough documentation for users to warm up to the application. There was a push by our division to go live with TMP in hopes the integration with the internal application would follow shortly after. but the project merge took much longer than expected and it's still a work in progress. Our IT division is working with our division on how to best route and address certain issues. However, we have made lots of progress since then, and since the application has been live for over 3 years. We did have some staff on loan who had working restrictions, but could work on TMP, so there was additional time spent training them. And of course, performance issues, which can happen in our internal environments. However, performance has been more stable since going live. Next slide. Future of the application. We are currently working to pilot a waste hauler version of the TMP to help better address illegal dumping issues. We have met with Republic Services for training on the application, and it will allow them to clear out cases on their own by adding an after picture of the debris collected and marking the case as resolved. They will also be able to submit data on any other illegal dumping collected that was not previously reported. Our division is looking to eventually add the waste hauler version of the TMP to all other contracts where all waste haulers will be using this application in the future. With the renewal of the rest of the contracts and amendments process, all contracted waste haulers will be using the hauler version of the TMP throughout the unincorporated areas of Los Angeles County. And as a kind of a brand new update, Republic Services has just started using the hauler version of the TMP this month, about 2 weeks ago. And everything seems to be going pretty smoothly, so we anticipate it continuing to do so. And they're kind of, I guess you can say, the test subject for all the future haulers that will be using it pretty soon. Next slide. So here's our contact information. Please feel free to contact us with any questions you may have, anything you want broken down more clearly, or any comments or anything at all. Just feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions. And with that, I'd like to thank Supervisor Miley once again and Aaron for the opportunity to be able to present. And I'm passing it back to you, Aaron, I believe, right?
That's right. Thanks, Juan. And thanks, Natalie, and also Peter for this presentation. You can see their contact information on the screen, so you can contact them directly. They're also going to be heading down to that Q&A feature. I saw a whole bunch of questions coming in during your presentation. And so you'll be heading down there to make sure those get an answer and hanging out in the chat for the next 15 minutes. So if you have a question for this team about how they've developed and used this application, now's the time. Let's get those questions going in the Q&A feature. Thank you all, and we'll see you soon, we hope. Excellent. You can stop sharing your screen, by the way. Thank you. Excellent. So I would now like to welcome our final speaker for our eradication session, which is going to be Caltrans, who will be speaking about some of the really important initiatives that are happening within Caltrans to address illegal dumping, blight, and litter throughout the state. And in order to do that, I would like to welcome our great partners, Byron Lim and Gia Whiteside, to the conference today. Welcome to you both. Byron began his Caltrans career in the Office of Structure, Construction, and worked in the Division of Structure Design, Office of Structure Maintenance and Investigation. In 2018, he joined the City of Mountain View in their Public Works Department before rejoining Caltrans in 2019 in the Program and Project Management area. Recently, Byron took on the role of project manager in District 4 Clean California in the Division of Maintenance responsible for the Clean California Key Action Initiatives. Gia is a 30-year Department of Transportation employee with a background in field safety. She currently works in the Caltrans Governor's $1.1 billion with a B Clean California Initiative. She is a senior public information specialist with Caltrans District 4, which represents the Bay Area, and she's responsible for providing internal and external communications and any outreach efforts associated with the Clean California Initiative or with the Adopt a Highway programs. Welcome to the second annual statewide conference on illegal dumping, and over to you both.
Thank you, Aaron. I believe I share my screen. You able to see?
Looks good.
Okay. So again, thank you, Aaron and Supervisor Miley, for this opportunity to present our update on Clean California effort on a statewide level and in the our Bay Area District 4. Gia and I will be tag teaming to provide this presentation. So with that, we're gonna kick it off. Ready, Gia?
Yes, it's ready.
Here we go. Here we go. Okay, let me see. Okay, Clean California is the governor 1.1 billion with the B, like Aaron said, for transformative initiative to remove litter, create jobs, and beautify California, making significant investments in litter collection, community engagement, and education. The initiative has 4 components: $438 million for expanding litter pickup, right? $297 million for local grant and investment in community, $287 million for enhancement to our infrastructure, beautification projects on our state right away, and $33 million for public education. The program does sunset in June 2024. So with that, Gia, I'm going to kick it to you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Statewide, I'm going to be talking a little bit about our collection of litter. So to date, statewide for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021, we have actually collected almost 517 cubic yards of litter. And this is statewide, one end to the other end. Over 8,700 tons of trash have been collected along just our travel ways. That is 3,975 semi-trucks, which equals 60 miles end to end. To give you a perspective of that 60 miles, you're looking at from Oakland all the way up the freeway to Stockton. Past actual Stockton, you're kind of coming into the Modesto area to get that 60 miles of semi trucks end to end for those for how much trash we have collected over our travel ways. We are District 4, and District 4 has collected about 83% of the trash. And so in our efforts to pick up trash in District 4 alone, our litter blitz effort have taken place over our major highway corridors. In Alameda County, we've done it over 880, 580, Highway 1380, and our Ashby Avenue quad over there. And then in Contra Costa County, we've done 580 and 680 as well. And then our Santa Clara County, we've had litter blitz along 680, 280, 85, 101, and Alum Rock. Next slide, Byron. Our litter pickups, we have volunteer litter pickup events in San Jose, in Vallejo, Menlo Park, Cupertino, and we're trying to get more cities to come on board with us for these volunteer litter pickups. We partner with Santa Clara's Zero Litter Initiatives, San Jose, Gilroy, Cupertino, Morgan Hill. We've had a couple of the pictures. We have had a couple of successful litter blitz pickups in the Santa Clara area. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to Byron.
Thank you. The other efforts that we're doing is the dump days. Caltrans has partnered with several cities to hold free dump days in the community. The goal is if we provide an event for folks to get rid of stuff, it may help reduce illegal dumping on our freeways and highways. And using this opportunity to engage and provide education to properly disposing household items. We have several upcoming free dump days, such as the spring cleanup that is happening, and this Saturday statewide dump day event in line with all the Earth Day weekend events and activities. So if your city is interested in holding a free dump day, give us a call and we'll be more than happy to try to coordinate one. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the Mattress Council, Mattress Recycling Council folks. They've been big partners with us doing these dump days, helping us collect the mattresses that you see on the picture on your right. Another program that we have is the Adopted Highway. This has been a very successful program over the years. We want to continue this effort, and under Clean California program, adopters are being offered cash stipend of $250 for adopted highway litter removal activities up to $3,000 per year. We are always looking for new adopters and corporate sponsorship. So a little plug on that, okay? Next one is the local grants program. The goal is to beautify and improve local streets, parks, transit center, and public spaces. Caltrans just awarded nearly $300 million for a total of 105 local projects. Projects will benefit underserved communities and expected to create over 3,600 jobs. And we are always looking for folks to hire. So please visit jobs.com, jobs.ca.gov. In District 4, there are 16 local grant awardees totaling $41.5 million. In Alameda County, 5 projects, including the DA Clean Street Initiative to provide continuous litter abatement throughout unhoused persons in East Oakland and Hayward, partnering with Waste Management, Statewide. So thank you earlier for Waste Management for that partnership, and Agent Materials. The other projects are City of Hayward, Stack Center Site Work and Plaza, as well as City of Berkeley, MLK Junior Civic Center Park, Turtle Garden projects, and the City of Oakland, where they're going to be beautifying and refurbishing 9 parks throughout the city, as well as the Cortland Creek restoration. We are very excited about these projects and can't wait for the ribbon cutting. Beautification projects on state system. Projects are programmed in the underserved and disadvantaged community to utilize unused spaces and area. In Alameda County at University Avenue, the scope of the project includes drought-resistant planting, gateway monument, and aesthetic enhancement. Another project is Oakland International Boulevard, installing lighting and pedestrian improvement. And lastly, the Portal Architectural Lighting Project, which we're going to try to light up the Caldecott Tunnel entrance and exit, as well as the Posey Webster Tube and YBI Tunnel. Next is a video that we have. Gia, I'm not sure if you have that or who's gonna. You're muted, Gia.
I believe Aaron and them, we sent it to Aaron and them, and now Aaron can play the video.
Excellent. We're working on playing the video.
No problem.
You may want to stop sharing your screen.
Oh, yep. Let me do that. That might help. Okay.
Here we go. Thank you.
We are extremely, and I repeat, extremely thankful to be receiving this funding. We are so very appreciative that the District Attorney's Office took the lead in making this happen. Elise has already been pinpointed, acknowledged, and I just want to acknowledge her too for all of her work on this, as well as all of our other partners like Argent, Downtown Street Team. To address illegal dumping, it is a team effort. Together, everyone achieves more. It is a team effort, and illegal dumping doesn't have to occur, but human beings have bad behaviors, and because of bad behaviors, we need efforts of this nature. So having the Clean California Initiative grant come to us to work on this is fundamentally important. As was mentioned, the Illegal Dumping Task Force is a statewide task force that I created out of my office. We will be having our second annual Illegal Dumping Conference April 19th, 20th, and 21st statewide. We'll be once again focusing on education, eradication, and enforcement over those 3 days. Right now we have over 600 people who have registered. Last year we had over 700. The conference is virtual, so we encourage anyone and everyone who's interested in addressing illegal dumping to be a part of the conference. Through the efforts over the last 3 years, just in Oakland, through our project efforts, we have collected over 400 tons. I'll repeat that, 400 tons over 3 years of illegal dumping, materials, items, etc., which is phenomenal. And it shouldn't occur, but if we weren't out there picking it up, it still would be there. And then over 150 trees have been planted because we need to both look at cleaning the communities and trying to keep the communities clean, because I really feel illegal dumping is akin to the broken window theory. If you let trash and garbage accumulate, then it just brings down the quality of life in communities, and it breeds and attracts other types of behavior that doesn't help communities. It just brings down the social fabric of those communities. And illegal dumping isn't just an issue in urban communities. It's an issue in urban communities, suburban communities, and rural communities. We find illegal dumping everywhere. So it's just really, really fundamentally important and significant that the governor has provided these resources, the state legislature has approved these resources, and Caltrans is overseeing these resources for the Clean California Initiative, so we can try to get a better handle on illegal dumping throughout the state. Because it isn't just one locale, it's a statewide issue, statewide concern. So let's keep up the good work, let's keep working together, because like I said, it's team. TEAM. Together, everyone achieves more, and we need everybody, the private sector, the faith community, government, individual community-based organizations, anyone and everyone to be working together to address this problem and curb people's bad behavior. So thank you so very much.
So what we would just like to do is thank Supervisor Miley for his speech. We have been going around highlighting a lot of our events for Clean California, and we thank them. We thank the District Attorney O'Malley and her crew for putting in that grant and being granted that grant. We look forward to working with them and partnering with them and everyone who is a partner in that particular process. We're going to join you in the chat, and at this time, I believe we are going to turn it over to Aaron.
Thank you so much, Gia and Byron, for that presentation on what Clean California and Caltrans is doing. We're so pleased to have received that grant, and you got to hear the supervisor talk about that as well. For any of our participants who are curious about Clean California, about Adopt a Spot, really about anything going on with Caltrans at a statewide level, hop down into that Q&A feature because Byron and Gia will be down there right now for the next 15 minutes answering your questions. They'll be hanging out in the chat, so now's an excellent time to engage with them. Thanks so much to both of you, and we look forward to continuing our work together. I'd now like to welcome back to the illegal dumping stage Alameda County Supervisor Nate Miley, who will be closing down the conference and bringing our day to a close. Nate, over to you.
Thank you, Aaron. I want to thank all the speakers today, all the presenters. It's been another full and complete and informative day, starting out with WM, Talia kicking us off, the legislative block, that was very interesting, product stewardship block, extended producer responsibility, the information we received from Product Stewardship Action, as well as the Product Stewardship Institute and California Product Stewardship Council, et cetera. The work that we heard from Paint Care, what they're doing, and that was really fascinating. Paint Care, I hadn't heard of that before, and that's a really great service. And then the panel on the cost of illegal dumping, fascinating. Then we heard from the LA on their smartphone technology, and I think that's going to be another useful tool that hopefully jurisdictions will be able to make use of. And finally, Caltrans Clean California Initiative. I think that, it's tremendous. So it's been a full day of a lot of good information, and I'm just very thankful for everyone's participation today. So once again, let me just acknowledge all of our sponsors, because without our sponsors, we couldn't put on the conference. And we have Waste Management, WM, as our title sponsor. Then we have as our education sponsor, Mattress Recycling Council, and also East Bay Municipal Utilities District. Then at our eradication level sponsor, we have the Orloma Sanitary District. At the enforcement level, we have Pepper Tree Village Apartments and Georgia Lane Townhomes, i.e. Tom Silva as our enforcement sponsor. Then we have a number of community sponsors. Just want to thank them all again. And that is the Jefferson County Department of Public Works in Louisville, Kentucky. We have the Illegal Dumping Technical Advisory Committee. We have Forrester. We also have the California Product Stewardship Council. We have Furniture Cycle. We have the National Stewardship Action Council. We have Paint Care. We have Castro Valley Sanitary District, and we have the Product Stewardship Institute. I want to thank all of our sponsors once again. Without them, we couldn't put the conference on. And you've heard from many of our sponsors over the last 2 days. They've made presentations. People are doing and organizations are doing remarkable work that collectively will help us further our agenda of trying to eliminate and prevent illegal dumping. I want to make sure everybody tunes in for tomorrow's conference because we have a full day of tomorrow. And, I don't want to sound preferential, but I must admit, I really am looking forward to the enforcement day because we can educate, we can eradicate, but unless we hold people accountable, we're going to have illegal dumping. I liken it to the fact that if we didn't have enforcement, people would drive crazy. And they're driving crazy anyway with enforcement. So you can see without enforcement, we're just really, throwing up our hands and not being able to get anywhere productively. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow's enforcement day. Tomorrow we'll hear from the National Association of Counties, their vice chair. The Attorney General will end the day as our keynote speaker. We'll hear how Louisville's addressing illegal dumping. We'll have a panel of folks talking about enforcement efforts, from code enforcement folks to the CHP, city attorneys, et cetera. We'll also hear information on franchise agreements, what we can do to put in franchise agreements that might help address illegal dumping as well. So we've got another full day ahead of us tomorrow. So please come back, let others know to join us for tomorrow's last day of our second annual statewide illegal dumping conference. The 3 E's: education, eradication, and enforcement. Together, everyone achieves more. Team, TEAM. So once again, thank you all, thank you all, thank you all. And we'll see you tomorrow morning at 9:00 a.m. Take care.